881. Hundreds of millions of souls in the underworld. Li Fan pondered for a moment, then placed another layer of 7-colored divine light as a seal outside the storage ring. With triple restrictions in place, the faint sense of crisis that had been lingering in his heart gradually receded. Quote, quote. It seems that perhaps the calamity isn't only happening in the Xuanwang realm. After the immortal path was severed, a great calamity descended upon all. He casually stored this dangerous sealed object in his own cave abode to suppress it. Li Fan then turned to Tianyong and asked, "How do you feel now?" Tianyong flew to Li Fan's side, sensed for a moment, and nodded. That ant-like gnawing sensation has indeed weakened. But it doesn't seem to have completely disappeared. Li Fan then bent down and touched the gray soil beneath his feet again. The scorching, stinging sensation still came, and his palm turned charred black in an instant. Before the black spots could spread, Li Fan skillfully cut off his palm. It fell to the ground and turned to ash. Even though the main culprit had already been suppressed by Li Fan, the bizarre state of the Soul Yin realm still hadn't changed. This is, the world's foundational laws have been completely altered. After pondering for a moment, Li Fan was horrified and shocked. If the immortal mortal miasma is completely targeted at cultivators, then these gray molds are specifically designed to infect the world. The current state of this Soul Yin realm is the corpse of a world. Just what kind of person would be so insane as to develop such a thing? A hint of interest flashed in Li Fan's eyes. In the 115th cycle, from this point in time to when the Immortal Alliance expedition team arrives, there are only 20 or so years. What exactly happened to give birth to ghost-like soul bodies in this wasteland? That's not right. Li Fan suddenly froze. The previous conclusion reached by the survey team was that the nourishment from countless soul bodies in the Yin Soul realm created the incredibly large rift whale swarm outside the realm. But now that no soul bodies have appeared, where did the many rift whales seen before come from? It wouldn't be difficult to figure out this question. Li Fan and Tianyong stayed in this Yin Soul realm for another 3 months. They constantly concealed their auras and waited in secret. It was to figure out whether the rift whale swarm had the habit of coming to this Yin Soul realm to forage. As the saying goes, perseverance will always be rewarded. One day, just as Li Fan was getting a little impatient from waiting, several distant cries rang out. About a dozen rift whales broke through the air and arrived above the Soul Yin realm. Compared to ordinary rift whales, they were generally a size larger. Seeming to sense the danger here, the rift whales weren't as unrestrained as they were in the void outside the realm. They cautiously swam in the air according to some kind of pattern. They proceeded towards a certain place in the Soul Yin realm. Li Fan and Tianyong quietly followed behind. At the edge of the Soul Yin realm, at a location that the two had already investigated and hadn't noticed anything unusual, the rift whales stopped. Led by a rift whale that seemed to have experience, it aimed at a certain spot on the gray soil and directly crashed head-on. The leading rift whale suddenly vanished, and the others followed suit in a similar manner. However, the area available for passage didn't seem to be particularly wide. Out of 10, a full 3 didn't grasp the specific location and directly collided with the gray soil. There wasn't a violent collision sound. Only black spots rapidly devoured them, turning them into pieces of gray earth that scattered on the ground. Li Fan came to the location where the rift whales disappeared, somewhat hesitant. "Senior brother, I'll go first," Tianyong volunteered. Li Fan nodded, and Tianyong didn't hesitate at all, flying into it. Li Fan didn't act rashly, patiently waiting outside the entrance. Before long, Tianyong returned. A rare expression of shock appeared on his originally wooden face. From the scene conveyed by the other party, Li Fan finally knew what was hidden inside. It was a yellow, Dao river, winding and flowing, forming a circular cycle. Countless soul bodies floated on the yellow river water, old and young. They were still wearing different clothes, but all of them had their eyes tightly closed, seemingly falling into a deep sleep. Having been soaked in this yellow river for an unknown amount of time, the soul bodies themselves had also undergone bizarre changes. Their lower bodies weren't like ordinary humans, without legs, but instead, had differentiated into countless roots. They deeply rooted themselves into the yellow river. It seemed that doing so could avoid the fate of being washed away by the river's flow. And those few rift whales that had sneaked into this place were as if they had arrived in a wine pool and meat forest. Extremely excited, they indulged in feasting. With a long breath, they swallowed tens of thousands of soul bodies. After devouring these soul bodies that had been soaked in the Yellow River, the changes in the rift whales' bodies were also extremely significant. Almost instantly, they swelled up in size, and something seemed to be gestating in their bellies. In the Yellow River, countless billions of soul bodies floated densely. The 7 rift whales were all stuffed, and the soul bodies they swallowed were only a negligible fraction of them. After they left contentedly, Li Fan, protected by the 7-colored divine light, entered the Yellow River. Even though he had seen countless floating, ice-sealed corpses in the reverse life and death formation before, Li Fan still felt a bit creeped out when facing the hundreds of millions of soul bodies in the river that were both human and inhuman. Under the protection of the 7-colored divine light, apart from some nausea, he didn't feel any discomfort. This Yellow River was much larger than the entire Soul Yin realm. After searching it once, Li Fan vaguely knew the reason for the birth of this strange phenomenon. The heavenly Tao of the Soul Yin realm has mutated due to the erosion of the gray molds. Fire is like cold ice, and life is like dead ashes. But here, there is a glimmer of vitality. It's only because this place was originally the death location of the Soul Yin realm. Li Fan observed that as the Yellow River flowed in a circle, slowly, some inexplicable factors in the river were washed together, gradually forming a vague human shape. As the water flowed continuously, the soul body became clearer and clearer, completely forming the appearance of a complete person. If it were the normal operation of the great Tao of the world, this newly born soul body might be thrown into the mortal world. But the Soul Yin realm itself has already died, and the cycle of life and death no longer exists. Over the years, these newly born souls have been constantly produced and piled up here. Having once witnessed the entire reverse life and death formation and having some understanding of the principles of life and death, Li Fan understood the reason for the formation of this strange phenomenon. 882. Golden chains bind distant stars. If no outsiders break this cycle, it might continue until the power nurturing the soul bodies within the Yellow River completely dissipates, only then will this phenomenon completely cease. However, I observe that the aura here is still extremely dense. If I didn't have the 7-colored divine light protecting me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to stay here for long either. This level of power, it shouldn't only last for 20 or 30 years, right? A hint of doubt arose in Li Fan's mind. What shattered the tranquility of the Yin Soul realm, releasing trillions of soul bodies from the Yellow Springs? Unless, like me, it was a cultivator who mistakenly entered this place. Or perhaps, in an instant, the skull he had recently suppressed surfaced in Li Fan's mind. Is it possible that person isn't dead yet? A thought suddenly emerged. This wasn't just baseless speculation from Li Fan being frightened by the bizarre scene here. Rather, this Yin Soul realm was extremely remote. Even at his current speed, it would take more than a month of continuous flight to reach it. Unless one had a specific goal, the possibility of accidentally entering this place was extremely low. On the other hand, the skull, although only the head remained. The black gold pattern on the skullcap could still exist despite the erosion of the gray mold. The black gold pattern is imperishable on the front, while gray mold grows inside the skull. Perhaps this indicates that the two forces are evenly matched, and neither can overcome the other. Recalling the appearance of the mysterious skull, Li Fan felt increasingly that his guess had a certain possibility of being true. If it were completely eroded, it should have completely turned to ashes like many things within the Soul Yin realm. Since the skull still exists, it means it hasn't truly died. There are countless secret techniques in the cultivation world. Xuanwang realm cultivators can achieve undying grotto heavens and immortality. It wouldn't be unacceptable if this mysterious skull could revive with the help of the black gold pattern. It is indeed very dangerous. But it's also an opportunity to learn what exactly happened in other cultivation worlds. Li Fan's eyes flickered, and he instantly thought of dozens of ways to utilize it. However, he didn't forget his main purpose for coming here. Junior brother, this realm-splitting whale can open up space in the void. These spiritual bodies are so loved by them, they must be of great benefit to them. Would you like to try it too? Tianyong quickly shook his head. They aren't human souls. They just look similar. These spiritual bodies are the condensation of the Yellow Springs power here. Seeing that the other party was somewhat disgusted, Li Fan couldn't help but explain. Only then did Tianyong feel a little better. He grabbed an adult old soul that had been soaked in the Yellow Springs water for so long that its original appearance could no longer be seen. Tianyong circulated his spiritual power and absorbed it. After a moment, his eyes lit up. Senior brother, I know why those big whales like to eat them. Tianyong said excitedly. This small world was originally evolved from this yellow springs. It's like a fruit growing on a tree. There are many rare laws and powers in the yellow springs water. The most abundant of these is the authority to create and open up space. Although it's only at the level of a small world, it is indeed useful to me. Tianyong said a lot in one breath, and then took another spiritual body crystal to absorb via voice transmission. This time, he frowned slightly. Unfortunately, it seems to be affected by that gray mold and has become somewhat chaotic. It's enough to take just one. More is of no benefit. Tianyong concluded. Li Fan nodded slightly. Scanning with his divine sense, he found a slightly older spiritual body crystal. After absorbing it, some images instantly appeared in Li Fan's mind. The yellow springs water flowed in a circular pattern. At fixed nodes, some power would remain. Over the years, these forces accumulated more and more. Then, they blossomed and bore fruit, forming a circle of 9 worlds. After an unknown amount of time, life was born in these worlds. Civilization began to appear. After the lives in the worlds died, they would return to the yellow springs. After the river flowed, they would go to other worlds to experience new lives. Peaceful days continued until this day. A golden chain cut through the sky, coming from the distant void. The chain spread and instantly wrapped around and locked the entire Yellow Springs world tightly. Then, under the effect of a huge pulling force, the Yellow Springs world continued to rumble. Mountains and rivers collapsed, like the end of the world. But the chain showed no sign of loosening. Moreover, sacred golden energy continuously poured out from it. Sharply cutting off the connection between the Yellow Springs world and space itself, it seemed to be pulling it somewhere. This was a magnificent force far beyond the Yellow Springs world. There was no room for resistance at all. It was constantly dragged through the void, and it was unknown how long it moved forward before it barely stabilized. The final result was that the Yellow Springs world was torn apart in this extreme pulling force. Only one of the 9 worlds remained, accompanying the Yellow Springs to this strange starry sky. The images in his mind slowly disappeared. Li Fan's eyes burst out with a strange light. He had long known that in ancient times, the Xuanwang realm had a miraculous formation. It could capture grotto heavens and worlds from the distant void. It could even open up space passages and directly wage war on other realms. Most of the countless grotto heavens and small worlds in the Xuanwang realm today came from this. But since the Xuantian sect and the 10 great immortal sects took power, this formation seemed to have been damaged. Its reputation was no longer apparent, and it seemed to have disappeared into the long river of history. Now, he actually had the fortune to witness the power of this ancient formation when it was activated through the memory of the remnant heavenly Tao of this Yin Soul realm. Li Fan's heart was shaken. Across the void, golden chains seeking enemies. How powerful is this? Li Fan can now be called a master of formations. With the terminal disintegration disc in hand, it is unlikely that anyone in the entire Xuanwang realm can be found with a higher level of formation skills than him. But even so, it was difficult for him to imagine how such a magnificent formation could be built. Plucking stars and seizing the moon, is this already a true immortal's method? Li Fan couldn't help but think like this. Moreover, from the fleeting glimpse of the Yellow Springs, remnant thoughts, the golden chain that Li Fan saw. It seemed to have some similarities to the one he saw in the Immortal ruins, used to lock up the remains of a true immortal. I wonder if there is any connection between them. That true immortal was trapped in the immortal mortal passage of the Xuanwang realm. It shouldn't be a coincidence. When the immortal path was not broken, there was still contact between the cultivation world and the immortal world. Since there could be immortal artifacts to support and help build the formation, it should also exist. Li Fan's thoughts surged. Seeing that his senior brother hadn't moved for a long time, Tianyong thought something had happened. He asked through voice transmission, which startled Li Fan. Junior brother, did you see the scene of the golden chain breaking through the sky? Li Fan couldn't help but ask. 883. The immortals show their power. Golden chain breaking through the air. Tianyang was somewhat stunned, but reacted after a moment. It seems like there was such a scene. However, I didn't quite understand what it meant, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. Tianyang focused more on utilizing the spatial power contained within the Yellow Spring spirit body. Li Fan, who didn't know much about spatial abilities to begin with, completely focused his attention on those ancient secrets. Like blind men touching an elephant, each had a different understanding. Li Fan then looked at the yellow spring water here. This great river can be called the river of creation of the Soul Yin realm. But the cycle of life and death has been destroyed. No matter how much power is added to it, its behavior of constantly evolving spirit bodies is destined to lead to its eventual drying up. When the yellow spring dries up, trillions of spirit bodies will drift out. Under normal circumstances, this process might take thousands or tens of thousands of years. It happened prematurely in the 115th life, most likely because that three-eyed skull was brought into the yellow spring for some reason. In order to be reborn, that skull absorbed all the power of the yellow spring water. Li Fan's experiences in his previous life and his on-the-ground investigation in this life allowed him to deduce the possible truth of what happened in this most remote affiliated small world of Xuanwang. After pondering for a long time, Li Fan did not touch the still thriving yellow spring water. Before leaving with Tianyang, Li Fan silently thought, if there is an attempt to escape the Xuanwang realm in this life, perhaps this Soul Yin realm is an excellent testing ground. After passing through a long spatial passage and spending nearly a month, Li Fan and Tianyang finally returned to the Xuanwang realm. Half a year had passed, and the flames of war between the Five Old Ones Association and the Myriad Immortals Alliance had been completely ignited. However, Li Fan didn't expect that the one who took the initiative to provoke the conflict this time was actually the Myriad Immortals Alliance, which had been at a disadvantage before. With one move, they caught the Five Old Ones Association off guard and even recovered the lost territory of Nine Mountains Province in one fell swoop. Those barriers that the Five Old Ones Association had spent a great deal of effort building on top of the 9 mountain ranges seemed like a complete joke. Having achieved such a result, the Myriad Immortals Alliance unusually did not publicize it widely. The Immortals of the Alliance only knew that good news was constantly coming from the front, but how the Myriad Immortals Alliance achieved such incredible results was a matter of much debate, with no reliable conclusion. Everyone speculated that it might be related to the previous 33 Immortal Chosen plan. During these 6 months, the avatar Ji Shaoli, who was stationed on Haishuan Island, also went to the fishing pond at the small temple, trying to learn the truth of that battle from Senior Stone Tablet. However, the other party seemed to be immersed in comprehending the way of fishing, completely ignoring him. Due to the defeat on the front lines, the Five Old Ones Association seemed to have become somewhat distrustful of the Myriad Realms United Association. Several attempts to actively contact them and try to figure out the inside story of the war were met with no response. Ji Shaoli had no choice but to put it aside for the time being. Lin Ling, during this time, gradually became familiar with Luli. Although Lin Ling had a Hidao cultivation level, she had only been born recently and had the temperament of a child, not at all putting on the airs of a senior. She took the initiative to find Luli to play every time. This slowly made the seemingly cute but actually somewhat alert little Taoist boy lower his guard. Spending all day with Luli, when Li Fan saw Lin Ling again, he keenly noticed. This originally somewhat ignorant and muddled innate spirit seemed to have somewhat awakened. Or rather, she was more like a person. Li Fan looked at the little Taoist boy hiding behind Lin Ling, lost in thought. However, he didn't bother with her for the time being, only instructing Lin Ling, "You come with me to the border of Nine Mountains Province." In the past, Lin Ling would definitely not ask anything, only nodding in agreement. But this time, a trace of doubt flashed in Lin Ling's eyes, hesitating to speak. Li Fan's eyes flickered, but he still simply explained, "I've been out for half a year this time and made some new discoveries. Perhaps it will be helpful to the current situation of the Five Old Ones Association." Only then did Lin Ling bid farewell to Luli. Then, she led Li Fan, traveling through the surging ley lines. Before long, the two arrived at a remote place in Nine Mountains Province. After first investigating to confirm that there were no cultivators lying in ambush nearby, they quietly emerged from the ground. Scanning with their divine senses, looking at this familiar yet very unfamiliar, Nine Mountains Province, Li Fan and Lin Ling both lost themselves for a moment. "I'm afraid that in the future, Nine Mountains Province will have to be renamed." After a moment, Li Fan, who had recovered, sighed slightly. The 9 majestic mountain ranges that originally stretched across the land of Nine Mountains Province had been completely shui-ku by some kind of power. The originally strategically important province had suddenly become a flat plain. However, the region transformed from the corpse of the alien beast Tien was already spatially unstable. Having experienced a shocking battle this time, this instability became even more pronounced. Above the sky, black spatial rifts could be seen everywhere. Like lightning, they constantly appeared and disappeared. After Tianyang finishes his seclusion and comprehends, perhaps I can bring him here for a visit. Li Fan couldn't help but have this thought in his mind. Master, there seems to be a certain extremely terrifying aura remaining here. Lin Ling's focus was different from Li Fan's. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then said with some trepidation. To be able to make a He Dao feel terrified, it must be a Changsheng realm powerhouse. Coupled with the frightening sight of 9 mountains being razed to the ground. Could it be that Xuanfa made a move? However, Li Fan quickly denied this guess. Without involving the safety of the Xuanwang realm itself, Xuanfa should be indifferent to disputes of this level. But besides Xuanfa, which Changsheng realm powerhouse does the Myriad Immortals Alliance have? The eastern extremity that only exists in the records, or the curator of the Bo'u Divine Treasure Pavilion, Di San Mo. Li Fan also thought of the rumors among the civilians of the Immortal Alliance. Could it really be that 33 Immortal chosen plan? Li Fan narrowed his eyes. Li Fan had given Wei Qizheng, one of the Immortal chosen, a piece of the end dissolution disk that he had cut off. Although it did not have the communication function of real-time transmission, it could record in detail most of the things that Wei Qizheng experienced. As long as he saw Wei Qizheng again, or Wei Qizheng died and the dissolution disk was damaged, he could synchronize the saved information to Li Fan. Although he was somewhat curious about the Myriad Immortals Alliance's methods, Li Fan also knew that now was not the time to harvest the fruits. The longer this nail was hidden, the more secret information he could know. Let's wait and see. Pressing down this thought, Li Fan first urged the special fluctuations to make contact with the 5 Old Ones Association. After waiting for a long time, there was still no reply. But Li Fan did not give up. He urged it again and again. In this way, after repeating it a full 7 times, from a certain location in 9 Mountains Province, a faint response came. After Li Fan went there, he found that the one who sent out the wave echo was just a smooth, mirror-like stone. 884. The law spreads to suppress the 9 mountains. This stone was quite similar to the tool Zhou Qingong had previously used to contact his superiors. Li Fan pondered for a moment, then covered it with both hands. He activated it using the 5 Old Ones Society's secret method from his memory. It was indeed effective. As layers of ripples appeared on the surface of the stone, a blurry human face emerged. After clearly seeing the situation on this side, the other side was first stunned. Then, the image shifted, as if the person on the other end had changed. The other party glanced at Li Fan, and after a while, coldly snorted, "You even know the newly modified guiding secret method. Your Myriad Realms Union has indeed planted spies among us." Li Fan smiled and said, "That's not the case. I was just trying it out casually. It was just a coincidence." A loud bang echoed from the other side, clearly indicating their dissatisfaction with Li Fan's attitude. However, they did not end the communication, but instead asked, "What do you want from us this time? We suffered terribly last time because of you." "What? World-suppressing weapon, the heaven-splitting cannon." "We prepared a complete set of countermeasures, originally intending to win with a surprise attack. But we never expected. HMPH, we suffered heavy losses due to a misjudgment of strategic direction caused by faulty intelligence." The face on the stone mirror suddenly expanded in size, appearing somewhat sinister in conjunction with his tone. Li Fan narrowed his eyes and did not immediately reply. After pondering for a moment, he shook his head and sighed, "It's not that I deliberately provided false information. It's just that the Myriad Immortals Alliance's act was too convincing this time, even we were deceived. Who would have thought that the world-suppressing weapon with such great power was actually just a smokescreen? However, you guys aren't doing much better, are you?" Li Fan suddenly changed the topic. How could the dignified 5 Old Ones Society establish a major strategic direction based solely on our words? You must have also investigated something before finally deciding on it. Since even you are like this, how could we avoid it? We can only say that the Myriad Immortals Alliance's move was indeed played beautifully. The 5 Old Ones Society's face looked displeased. We originally thought that the much-publicized 33 Immortal Chosen were just a facade. The real killing move must be hidden elsewhere. Who would have thought that the Myriad Immortals Alliance would be so arrogant and without any concealment? Putting their trump card directly on the surface. The face's tone was full of pent-up frustration, like having mustered all his strength only to throw a punch into empty air. Li Fan seized the opportunity to ask, what exactly happened on the 9 Mountains Province battlefield? You were defeated too quickly. We didn't dare to believe it was true until we received the news and personally went to the scene to confirm. The Five Old Ones Society's face was gloomy and remained silent. Seeing this, Li Fan directly unleashed his trump card. The Myriad Immortals Alliance's martial arts hall headquarters, Immortal Venerable Zaichang, is actually one of your people, right? The face froze instantly. Clearly, his level was not high enough to know about this matter. Go and confirm with your superiors. This person is problematic, cannot be completely trusted, Li Fan said solemnly. The face lost its previous composure and hurriedly retreated, disappearing from view. Li Fan then waited calmly. Lin Ling, who was beside him, secretly sized up Li Fan, unable to suppress the curiosity in her eyes. The Five Old Ones Society's response was very swift. Before long, a figure reappeared on the smooth stone surface. Friend, what you said earlier. Immortal Venerable Zaichang cannot be completely trusted, what do you mean? The speaker was no longer the previous person, but sounded like an older man with a strong voice. If our intelligence is correct, Immortal Venerable Zaichang is a demonically possessed cultivator. His true loyalty is not to your Five Old Ones Society, nor to the Myriad Immortals Alliance, but only to Celestial Venerable Xuanfa alone, Li Fan said softly. Sometimes, his information is correct, but in some cases, I'm afraid there is truth mixed with falsehood, making it difficult to distinguish, Li Fan said meaningfully. Although his words were vague and unclear, the Five Old Ones Society fell into a long silence. So that's how it is. From the Five Old Ones Society man's low murmur, it was not difficult to hear how shocked he was at this moment. After all, this Immortal Venerable Zaichang was the Five Old Ones Society's deepest hidden and most important spy. Much important information was provided by him. This matter was absolutely confidential. Originally, only a few people within the Five Old Ones Society knew about it. However, this cultivator from the Myriad Realms Union already knew Zaichang's true identity. Coupled with the previous defeat caused by intelligence errors, the implications of this almost made the middle-aged man feel as if he had fallen into a deep freeze. But after all, his psychological quality was extraordinary, and he quickly reacted. Taking a deep breath, he thanked Li Fan, we will investigate this matter carefully. Thank you for the reminder, friend. Li Fan then directly cut to the chase, we need to know what exactly happened in Nine Mountains Province at that time. Also because of misjudgment, our attention was not on the Nine Mountains Province battlefield at that time. Although we have gleaned some news from within the Myriad Immortals Alliance, it is too shocking and needs to be confirmed with you. Actually, he should be able to appear in a normal state in a while. I will transmit the scene at that time to you, you can see for yourself. The middle-aged man seemed eager to confirm the truth of the information provided by Li Fan. After transmitting a piece of information, he bid farewell and left. The smooth broken stone shattered on its own, rendering it unusable. Li Fan, on the other hand, watched the scene that appeared in his mind shaken violently. The sky of Nine Mountains Province was clear and blue. Suddenly, a face emerged. Wearing a tall crown and sporting a long beard. His expression was solemn, and his eyes were lowered. He seemed to have compassion for all living beings, and also had boundless murderous aura hidden within. Any cultivator of the Myriad Immortals Alliance would not be unfamiliar with this face. Because in every heavenly city of every province, and even in every territory of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, one could occasionally see the statue of this being. He was the creator of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, the originator of the new law that defied the principles of heaven and earth, Celestial Venerable Xuanfa, who had dominated the Xuanwang world for thousands of years. As Celestial Venerable Xuanfa's face first appeared, a looming body quickly appeared in the sky above. At this moment, the Five Old Ones Society cultivators in Nine Mountains Province also noticed the abnormality in the sky. They quickly gathered and stood ready. However, Celestial Venerable Xuanfa did not give them much time to prepare before taking action. Xuanfa, who had been lowering his eyes and closing them, suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately, an unimaginable and terrifying force descended upon Nine Mountains Province. Countless cultivators were crushed into mincemeat and blood flowed all over the ground before they could even utter a cry. Under this powerful pressure, the Nine Mountain ranges emitted constant roars. The mountains collapsed and fractured layer by layer. From top to bottom, they continued to disintegrate. Xuanfa did not move his gaze, and the terrifying pressure that descended on Nine Mountains Province did not stop. The 9 mountain ranges were thus leveled to the ground inch by inch. 885. The old friend comes again. Under the gaze of the celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission, the layers of defense lines set up by the 5 old ones in 9 mountain state collapsed in an instant. In the face of absolute power disparity, all struggles and resistance are futile. All living beings within the state, including the cultivators stationed by the 5 old ones, the followers of the spiritual origin church, and even countless mortals, all died in an instant when the celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission opened his eyes. It was as if the Xuanwang world could not withstand the direct gaze of a true immortal. The living beings of 9 mountain state could not directly face the might of Dharma transmission. An unknown number of cultivators died in an instant. Originally, there should have been countless phenomena of falling stars in the sky. But perhaps because the figure of Dharma transmission did not dissipate. Under the pressure, those phenomena of falling stars failed to condense for a long time. This scene was as if, in front of the celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission, even the heavenly Tao of the Xuanwang world had restrained itself, not daring to recklessly mock and celebrate the death of cultivators. The image provided by the 5 old ones came to an abrupt end. Although it was indeed somewhat shocking. But for Li Fan, who had already seen the scene of true immortals destroying the world, it was nothing more than that. After repeatedly savoring it, Li Fan immediately noticed something was wrong. Dharma transmission, a 33 immortal chosen. In his 115th life, the celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission had revealed his true form. The entire Xuanwang world was trembling under his might. It was as if the end of the world was coming, and it could be completely torn apart by his power at any time. In comparison, the celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission who appeared in 9 mountain state this time was not only weaker. What is this, a projection? A clone? A glimmer of light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. In his perception, Wei Qizheng, one of the immortal chosen, was still alive and well. And the cultivators of the 5 old ones had also mentioned that he, that is, the phantom of Dharma transmission, might appear more frequently in the future. This proved that it was not a one-time consumption method, but an operation that could be continuously reproduced. Although its strength is far inferior to the Dharma transmission's true form, it is definitely a longevity realm combat power. More importantly, it is still unclear how the Dharma transmission projection appeared on the sky of 9 mountain state. From beginning to end, those immortal chosen have never appeared. If it can ignore the limitations of location and arbitrarily summon the Dharma transmission projection to descend, then the deterrence is too great. Before finding a way to deal with it, the 5 old ones would not dare to act rashly. Li Fan's eyes flickered as he looked around the 9 mountain state region. An unknown number of living beings had been buried here not long ago. But very specially, there was not a trace of blood to be smelled. After all, under the pressure of Dharma transmission, the blood had been crushed out of existence. As expected of a method that takes the form of Dharma transmission, it is more like destruction than killing. Li Fan sighed in his heart. After figuring out what happened in 9 mountain state, Li Fan did not stay here. He quickly returned through the power of the earth veins. If I am not mistaken, if the 5 old ones want to counterattack next, then it is very likely that they will use the open black lens bracket Samantabhadra true arc close black lens bracket to launch a surprise attack in the white mist. As long as they fight in the hinterland of the Immortal Alliance, if the Myriad Immortal Alliance wants to use that trick of Dharma transmission projection, it will definitely be full of scruples. But this kind of surprise attack is most effective only the first time. The 5 old ones should be thinking of using it at the decisive moment. Interesting. Let's see how the 5 old ones choose. The deterrent power of the Dharma transmission projection was indeed extraordinary. Even though it was only used once in 9 mountain state, it scared the members of the 5 old ones in other fallen border areas, causing them to shrink their forces. Almost without much effort, the Myriad Immortal Alliance recovered all the several border states that had been lost before. Good news kept coming, making the cultivators who had always been accustomed to the Myriad Immortal Alliance being frustrated, unable to believe it. As a result, conspiracy theories began to spread in various places for a time. Kanyan Sea, Haizan Island. The speed at which the Immortal Alliance has recovered its lost territory is too fast. Do you think there is something strange about this? I heard a rumor. It is said that these few states were not taken down by our Myriad Immortal Alliance at all. But the 5 old ones deliberately returned them to us. After finally capturing them, how could the 5 old ones be willing to give up like this? You don't know this, do you? It's still returning them, but what's returned is just a ruin. Anything of slight value has been scavenged by those people from the 5 old ones. According to a friend of mine, the current situation in those few states on the front line is terrible. Hiss. I understand. This is the 5 old ones' open plot. The lost territory will always have to be rebuilt after it is recovered, right? When we have worked hard to build it, the 5 old ones will attack again. Then it will be plundered again. I said, how did we suddenly become so tough? So that's how it is. Conspiracy theories are always popular with the public. Unable to accept that the always weak, myriad Immortal Alliance has achieved such brilliant results in a short period of time. Some cultivators began to imagine the possible conspiracies behind it. Just as they were discussing it with great enthusiasm, they did not know that their conversation had annoyed 2 people. Bang! In the loud noise of slamming the table, a figure suddenly stood up. Originally, I thought that this Comprehension Mutual Aid Association was famous far and wide, and it must be an amazing organization. But I didn't expect it to be so unbearable. That person glanced around at the group of cultivators present, and said coldly, now that the war on the front line has not yet subsided, I don't know how many colleagues have died on the battlefield. It's fine if you people don't contribute, but you're still gossiping behind your backs. I, Ko Hong, am ashamed to be with you. Bah! Ko Hong glared angrily, his voice like thunder. Beside him, another white-clothed cultivator with a slender figure, sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes stood up, and laughed loudly, my brother is right. I, Dao Xuanzi, also looked down on this group of beasts. The words of the 2 immediately offended the previous small group. They looked coldly at Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi, with a hint of killing intent flashing in their eyes. I'm afraid that if this was not Ji Shaoli's territory, they would have taken the lives of these 2 outspoken cultivators on the spot. This mutual aid association is not worth staying in. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi said angrily, and were about to leave. Wait a minute, you 2. Suddenly someone stopped them. Everyone looked intently and bowed. It turned out to be Ji Shaoli, the owner of Haizan Island and the person in charge of the Comprehension Mutual Aid Association, who had arrived in person. Fellow Taoist Ji, so-called people with different paths cannot make plans together. Let's say goodbye here today. Ko Hong turned his head and ignored Ji Shaoli. But Dao Xuanzi was still polite, and cupped his hands. The avatar Ji Shaoli did not speak, but just looked at the 2 familiar faces in front of him, with a smile on his lips. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Fate is wonderful. Looking at the 2, who in the original historical trajectory were still only foundation establishment cultivators even after decades, were now already in the early stage of Golden Core. He couldn't help but make a decision in his heart. 886. Fate changes suddenly. Speaking of which, the reason why the fates of Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi changed so drastically. This matter is inextricably linked to Li Fan. These 2 were originally proud and arrogant, unwilling to be the workhorses of the Myriad Immortals Alliance for the sake of cultivation techniques. They would rather risk their lives exploring various sect ruins to find ancient cultivation methods than join the Myriad Immortals Alliance or the 5 Elders Council and work for others. But in this life, their attitudes have undergone earth-shattering changes. The cause was that after the Heavenly Sun Harmony, Li Fan ordered the detonation of the Keeling State Void. Then, the immortal mortal taint sealed within returned again, wreaking havoc on the world. No cultivator could escape the fate of being infected by the immortal mortal taint. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were naturally no exception. At that time, they were only at the foundation establishment stage. They were not special physiques, and their symptoms rapidly deteriorated after infection. In just a few days, they were on their last breath. Just as the 2 brothers were preparing to go to the Yellow Springs together, they unexpectedly received the free special medicine distributed by the Myriad Immortals Alliance. The 2, who originally had deep prejudices against the Myriad Immortals Alliance, couldn't care less in the face of life and death. They swallowed the medicine hastily. The effect was immediate, and in just a few days, they had improved somewhat. When the 2nd dose of special medicine from the Myriad Immortals Alliance was distributed, it completely helped them overcome this disaster. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi, who had survived, were deeply grateful to the Myriad Immortals Alliance for saving their lives. They deeply reviewed their previous prejudices against the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Then, they both joined the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Perhaps it is true that after surviving a great disaster, there must be good fortune. After joining the Myriad Immortals Alliance, these two brothers sold all the sundries they had obtained from their adventures to Tianshuan Mirror, and unexpectedly obtained a large sum of money. They directly exchanged it for 2 golden core cultivation methods, and even had a surplus. With their accumulated knowledge, they broke through the foundation establishment stage in a short period of time and became golden core cultivators. The wonder of fate is such. After seeing these 2 unexpected people on Haishuan Island, Ji Shaoli spent some contribution points to find out what happened to them. And after they had a dispute with the members of the Mutual Aid Society, he came forward to stop them. Although these 2 are a bit straightforward, this kind of personality that is difficult to turn back once they have identified something is not without its advantages in some aspects, Ji Shaoli thought. Facing Dao Xuanzi's insistence on leaving, Ji Shaoli was not annoyed, but asked a soul-searching question. Why are the 2 fellow Taoists angry? Did these few just say something wrong? Dao Xuanzi was slightly stunned. Ji Shaoli said solemnly, if what they said is wrong, I will definitely ask them to apologize to the 2 of you immediately. However, I have also heard other cultivators say what they said. Although I am also unwilling to believe it, it is not without reason. The Immortal Alliance has always been vague about how to win, which is contrary to common sense. Can you blame us for this? Or, have the 2 fellow Taoists ever witnessed the frontline battles and are sure that what we said is wrong? Ji Shaoli's words directly stunned Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi. The 2 opened their mouths, but couldn't think of any words to refute. Ji Shaoli smiled slightly. Please sit down, too. Our mutual aid society is now quite large, and with more people, various ideas will inevitably collide. Therefore, open black lens bracket seeking common ground while reserving differences close black lens bracket is our basic principle of dealing with things. Everyone can have their own ideas. If you think the other party is wrong, then present the facts, reason, and refute the other party. To start scolding at the slightest disagreement, is that what a gentleman does? Ji Shaoli stretched out his hand and directly pressed the 2 who were still struggling back to their seats. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi looked at each other, feeling a little shocked at the same time. But they felt that what Ji Shaoli said was not without reason. They were also free and easy in their actions. After pondering for a moment, they first apologized to the previous small group. Then they sat down and carefully looked at Ji Shaoli. They had heard about this person in charge of the Kongyunsi Mutual Aid Society for a long time. They only heard that he was mysterious and might have a great background. But they did not expect that his strength was also unfathomable. Brother, I see that he is clearly only at the golden core stage. Why can't we have any resistance? Dao Xuanzi asked through voice transmission. Ko Hong narrowed his eyes. He must have hidden his cultivation. If we 2 brothers fight one-on-one, we may not be the opponents of those peerless geniuses. But if we join forces, we should not be weaker than anyone in the same realm. Dao Xuanzi also nodded slightly, feeling somewhat relieved. That must be the case. So, he is actually at the nascent soul stage. It seems that this mutual aid society is indeed not simple. The 2 concentrated on listening to Ji Shaoli's speech. Including but not limited to, the achievements of the Kongyun Mutual Aid Society in just a few years, outstanding members and their lives, the future plans of the Mutual Aid Society, etc. Although none of them were substantial, all were grand and empty words of encouragement. But Ji Shaoli spoke with great emotion, coupled with his ups and downs in tone, his agitation was extremely strong. All the cultivators present had flushed faces, as if they had already seen their beautiful future after joining the Mutual Aid Society. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were also deeply attracted by the various benefits described by the other party, and instantly threw the unpleasant little friction just now behind them. It seems that we really came to the right place. They looked at each other, both thinking so. After the speech, under the witness of the open black lens bracket red dust compassionate true immortal close black lens bracket, they were officially joined the Mutual Aid Society. There was another warm celebration. When the crowd dispersed, they woke up as if from a dream. Isn't it a little hasty? Before they had time to think about it, the 2 were quietly pulled by Ji Shaoli to a secret room on the island. Fellow Taoist Ji, you are. Ko Hong raised his vigilance. Ji Shaoli showed a sincere look and said, in fact, what the 2 of you just said is very much in my heart. But in order to quell the public's anger, I had to quibble. In today's world, there are not many cultivators like you 2, who are so passionate and sincere. Ji Shaoli bowed to the 2 to express his apology. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were caught off guard by this move and quickly returned the salute. However, the two of you are loyal to the wrong object. At this moment, Ji Shaoli's face changed, and he said coldly. The two were completely confused by Ji Shaoli's face-changing performance. Fellow Taoist Ji, you are exactly. Ji Shaoli said. Hehe, I know that you joined the Myriad Immortals Alliance because you were grateful for the life-saving grace of the special medicine. But, what exactly is this so-called special medicine? Please see for yourselves. Saying that, Ji Shaoli threw out a jade slip. Engraved inside were all the detailed information about the Mind Ascension Pill. Myriad, Immortals, Alliance. After reading it, Ko Hong's eyes instantly widened, and his face turned red. 887. Changing fate at will. It's not some kind of special effect elixir at all. It's just a weakened version of the Heart Ascension Pill, which accelerates the outbreak of immortal mortal chi in the cultivator's body. So, even without this so-called special effect medicine, we could have survived on our own. Compared to Ko Hong, Dao Xuanzi seemed much calmer. However, he still clenched his fists tightly, his face looking unpleasant. No wonder I've been feeling a little absent-minded from time to time recently. I want to do something, but I feel a bit lost and don't know what to do. It turns out it's all because of this Heart Ascension Pill. Ko Hong gritted his teeth, suddenly realizing. To think that we two brothers were still grateful and joined the Myriad Immortals Alliance overnight. Feeling deceived and greatly humiliated, Ko Hong stood up abruptly. No, the more I think about it, the angrier I get. I can't stay in this Myriad Immortals Alliance for a moment longer. The hot-tempered Ko Hong made a decision immediately. Hold on, Ji Shaoli reached out and stopped him. Hehe, I know you're feeling indignant, Brother Ko. But, have you thought about the consequences of leaving the Myriad Immortals Alliance? Ji Shaoli said meaningfully, I've never heard of anyone who left the Myriad Immortals Alliance and still lived well. Ko Hong raised his eyebrows and said angrily, so what? I, Ko Hong, am not one to be afraid of death. At worst, I'll reveal the secret of this special effect medicine. And we'll all perish together. Anyway, no matter what, I will never stay in this Myriad Immortals Alliance. It makes me feel disgusted. Dao Xuanzi also stood up, obviously making the same decision as Ko Hong. You two have true character, true heroes. I knew I didn't misjudge you. Ji Shaoli clapped his hands in admiration. What do you mean, fellow Taoist? Dao Xuanzi asked, his eyes flashing. I also believe that the Immortal Alliance is immoral. We cultivators should unite and overthrow it, restoring a clear and bright world to Zhan Huang. Ji Shaoli's face was solemn. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were shocked. They looked at each other, and instantly became much more polite to Ji Shaoli. But they just didn't see eye to eye with the Myriad Immortals Alliance, they weren't stupid. They were only golden core cultivators, while the Myriad Immortals Alliance had countless transformation god and Tao harmonization experts. Overthrow the Myriad Immortals Alliance. What a joke. The two of them pretended not to hear Ji Shaoli's words and were about to say goodbye and leave. But how could Ji Shaoli let them leave so easily? In this small secret room, he forcibly gave them a crash course on the existence of the Myriad Realms United Association. There's no need to elaborate on the various methods used. In short, after a speech, Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi had already changed from avoiding it like the plague to being deeply moved. The most solid fortress is often breached from within. Our Kanyan Mutual Aid Society is a nail driven into the inside of the Immortal Alliance. We remain hidden, waiting for the day when the time is ripe to completely bury the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Ji Shaoli's tone was very firm. What do you two think? Looking at Ji Shaoli's eager and enthusiastic gaze, Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were still somewhat hesitant. They knew that this was different from when they were rogue cultivators and spoke without restraint. This was something that could really get you killed. But the matter had come to this point, knowing the secret of the Myriad Realms United Association, if they didn't agree, they probably wouldn't be able to leave this secret room safely today. While the two brothers were hesitating, Ji Shaoli once again raised the stakes. Do you two know why our Kanyan Mutual Aid Society, established only a few years ago, has been able to attract countless cultivators who come admiringly? Besides the so-called mutual help and resource sharing, the most fundamental reason is that the Myriad Realms United Association will select and cultivate the backbone forces from within. All cultivation resources are made readily available. For example, nascent soul grotto heavens, transformation god transformations, and even the prowess of heaven and earth. Although Ji Shaoli's tone was light, it was like thunder in the ears of Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi. Ko Hong couldn't help but swallow. Fellow Taoist Ji, is this really true? Ji Shaoli smiled slightly and nodded in confirmation. You two brothers were both rogue cultivators before, so you must know the difficulty of cultivation. Not to mention the prowess of heaven and earth and the transformation of primordial, just take the nascent soul grotto heaven, can you two have the confidence to find it on your own luck? If there's no hope of advancing to the nascent soul stage, are you willing to have your cultivation locked in the golden core realm for the rest of your lives? Ji Shaoli's voice grew louder and louder, constantly echoing in the minds of Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi. Their eyes slowly changed, and they finally made up their minds. A true man should live between heaven and earth, how can he be mediocre in this life? Ko Hong said fiercely in his heart. Such a God-given opportunity, we must not miss it. Dao Xuanzi also said with a serious face. Good, very good, then let us hold the joining ceremony again. A real joining ceremony. Ji Shaoli laughed loudly. Following that, the mysterious and unpredictable faceless stone statue reappeared in the sky above the secret room. Under the leadership of Ji Shaoli, Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi recited the oath again. After changing some of the content and finishing the recitation, they felt as if their minds had been shackled by an invisible yoke. The two brothers looked at each other, secretly shocked in their hearts. Now that we are all one family, I will be blunt. Ji Shaoli cordially pulled the two of them to sit down at the stone table in the secret room. If I'm not mistaken, the Foundation establishment wonders of you two are the Dao Zan sword and the Chonglong branch, is that right? Ji Shaoli asked. How could he tell? The two brothers were so shocked that they were about to stand up on the spot. Signaling the two not to be surprised, Ji Shaoli bluntly said, I see that you two brothers truly have extraordinary talent. However, you are being held back by the quality of your Foundation establishment wonders. Not to mention the wonders of heaven and earth, even if you change to a high-grade wonder of humanity, your future can be said to be limitless. Even though the two brothers were very conceited, they couldn't resist Ji Shaoli's praise. Their old faces flushed red, and they were about to say a few words of humility. But they were instantly attracted by Ji Shaoli's next words. Our mutual aid society selects backbone personnel, not based on aptitude or talent, but only on temperament. As long as the temperament meets the requirements, we will help them. Defy the heavens and change fate. Ko Hong's breathing stagnated. Defy the heavens and change fate. But we are all ready. That's right. I wonder if you two have ever heard of the re-established Dao method. Ji Shaoli said enticingly. The method of re-establishing Dao can enable cultivators to re-establish their Dao foundation without affecting their own cultivation and mana at all. Moreover, they can slowly use the new Dao foundation to devour and replace the original Dao foundation. Thus, they can complete the transformation silently, making up for all the past flaws. Ji Shaoli slowly explained, and the breathing of the Ko Hong brothers became more and more rapid. There is such a heaven-defying method in the world. That's right, although you two are already golden core, you have only recently broken through. The cost of shattering your cores and recultivating is not particularly high. Ji Shaoli nodded. 888. The soul of the infinite power. Moreover, the association just received news not long ago. In the past decade, a land wonder will be born in the Xuanwang realm. Two of them. Ji Shaoli dropped a bombshell. One of them is in this Kongyan Sea. It is a open black lens bracket Kanghai Pearl close black lens bracket, containing endless ocean power. The other is in Guanglan province. It is the open black lens bracket 10,000 mountains cauldron close black lens bracket, containing continuous mountain ranges, with infinite mysteries. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi's bodies couldn't help but tremble slightly. Land wonder. They only dared to dream of treasures of this level. If you are willing, the United Association can help you obtain these two items, Ji Shaoli said solemnly. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were stunned on the spot. They suspected they had misheard. They, the two brothers. What virtue and ability did they possess? As if seeing through their inner thoughts, Ji Shaoli patted them on the shoulders. You two don't need to belittle yourselves. Although those so-called geniuses surpass you in family background and talent. But what our United Association values most is character. Your ambition is no weaker than any genius I have ever seen in my life. Ji Shaoli said decisively. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were in a daze. Am I actually so strong? This thought emerged in their minds. I believe that if you are given a high enough starting point, it will be enough for you to spar with those geniuses. Ji Shaoli said in a deep voice. Are you willing? He asked again, although they still couldn't believe that such a good thing would happen to them. But on the other hand, what was there to deceive them, the two brothers? If they could really be fortunate enough to obtain a land wonder, then even if they died, there would be no regrets, right? The two, who had struggled in the wilderness for half their lives, immediately nodded repeatedly. If I can really build my foundation with a land wonder, I will definitely serve the United Association to the death. Ko Hong said sincerely. Dao Xuanzi also made a solemn vow. Good, then it's settled. Ji Shaoli immediately made a decision. Casually, he distributed the land wonders that he once regarded as treasures to Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi. The Kanghai Pearl was an old friend of Li Fan. The 10,000 Mountains Cauldron was also a land wonder that Li Fan had once detected, which would be born around this time. They were actually quite valuable. However, as his cultivation level increased day by day, these land wonders were already useless to him. Rather than being detected by the Immortal Alliance cultivators and occupied by them, it would be better to use them to strengthen the power of the Myriad World United Association. As for why he chose Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi, it was purely because Li Taishi had a whim, that's all he thought. After all, to him, what was the essential difference between a peerless genius and Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi, who were trapped in foundation building for life and died of old age? Actually, these two people's talents can't be said to be too bad. At the very least, judging from their performance in the battle in Dakshuan capital that day, their actual combat power has already surpassed ordinary cultivators by too much. Since their fate in this life has deviated so greatly, then I will add more fire and see where their limits will be. Ji Shaoli thought so, while protecting the two brothers. He took out all kinds of treasures to minimize the danger of their re-establishment of foundation. To be honest, it was a bit beyond his expectations that these two people appeared in front of Li Fan in this life. And now, there were very few things in the Xuanwang realm that could bring Li Fan a little surprise. Therefore, there was today's attempt. However, this day can be described as a day that completely changed the fate of Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi. It was only a trivial attempt when the incarnation Ji Shaoli was bored after staying on Haishuan Island for a long time. He didn't care what the result would be. What Li Fan really cared about was himself. At this moment, in the spirit wood realm, Li Fan's true self was immersed in his mind, and was one with the five elements cave heaven. Feeling the surging power of the five elements, he tried to accommodate them in one place. The five elements return to one, infinity is emptiness, its power is endless, and the spirit is immortal. With the endless power of the five elements, it is enough to push my open black lens bracket infinity emptiness art close black lens bracket to a whole new level. Make up for my last shortcoming. Under Li Fan's exquisite manipulation, the power of the five elements perfectly converged in one place, forming a kind of unknown energy that Li Fan had never seen before. Li Fan's spirit seemed to have been hungry for a long time, and suddenly felt the scent of food. Waves of hunger came, making Li Fan almost think that the side effects of the open black lens bracket hunger close black lens bracket formula had reappeared. However, he quickly distinguished that this was the spirit's natural reaction after feeling something that was of great benefit to himself. Immediately, he no longer hesitated, and absorbed this inexplicable energy like a long whale drinking water. Similar to the feeling when he swallowed the intent horse, the spirit felt as if it was soaked in a hot spring, feeling warm all over. However, the difference between the two is that the effect of open black lens bracket intent horse close black lens bracket is only temporary. After digestion is completed, the nourishment for the spirit also disappears without a trace. However, this infinity emptiness art will never stop as long as Li Fan provides the five elements transformation. If taking the intent horse was like taking a hot bath, and the water temperature drops quickly, then this infinity emptiness is a hot spring that always maintains its temperature. In the continuous nourishment, Li Fan's spirit rapidly grew to a degree that he could almost distinguish himself. If the initial formation of protection when he was in Dakshuan was just wearing a raincoat outside the spirit, then at this moment, with the infinity emptiness art running, Li Fan only felt that his spirit no longer needed the protection of any external objects. Relying on itself, it is as strong as steel. No matter how the outside world blows and rains, I will stand still. Perhaps it is also because my previous spirit strength was too low that the effect of cultivation will be so significant. However, not long after, Li Fan felt that the infinity emptiness art had begun to decline, and he realized something. The Immortal Alliance is too strict on the cultivation methods of the spirit. Without the help of the deduction jade, Even if I reincarnate in all worlds, I have not found a few good products. But after today, it will be different. Li Fan closed his eyes and immersed himself in the mind cultivation of the infinity emptiness art. It had been a long time since he had felt the joy brought about by the rapid growth of cultivation. I wonder if the real function will become different with the growth of the spirit. A thought suddenly appeared in Li Fan's mind. When Li Fan woke up from seclusion, the first thing he did was to try the effect of open black lens bracket infinity emptiness art close black lens bracket so-called immortal spirit. In his memory, there is a secret technique that burns one's own spirit at the cost of greatly improving one's cultivation in a short time. Open black lens bracket soul burning art close black lens bracket. Without the slightest hesitation, Li Fan launched it violently. 889. Burning soul and grinding the way. Boom. Li Fan felt as if his divine soul was instantly submerged in magma. The extreme heat threatened to completely burn away his soul. Enveloped in endless light, Li Fan felt his divine soul dissolving and vanishing at an alarming rate. But correspondingly, the divine soul, burned to near nothingness, transformed into a mysterious nutrient. The 5 elements grand grotto heaven trembled slightly, and then a layer of scarlet radiance appeared in each of the grotto heaven worlds. The blood-colored light cast an eerie yet beautiful glow upon the 5 elements landscape. Under the shroud of this blood-colored light, numerous phenomena were born within the grotto heaven's firmament. Even more terrifying was that, within the grotto heaven, the circulation of the 5 elements' power instantly accelerated by nearly twofold. Moreover, this violent catalytic effect seemed to have no upper limit, and in turn, further accelerated the burning of Li Fan's divine soul. A deadly sense of crisis surged into his heart. Li Fan understood that if he didn't return to reality before his divine soul was completely incinerated, then he would truly die. Forcibly suppressing the urge to return to reality, Li Fan silently began to circulate the limitless emptiness fullness art. An invisible vortex appeared at the intersection of the 5 elements grotto heavens. A large amount of violent 5 elements power was evenly drawn out. The 5 elements returned to one. From the void, the power of emptiness fullness was born. What was originally like a seabed exposed after the tide receded, was instantly swept over by surging seawater. The portion of Li Fan's divine soul that had already disappeared surprisingly reappeared under the nourishment of this emptiness fullness power. Although it was quickly burned away again by the soul-burning, secret art, the endless nature of the 5 elements emptiness fullness power caused this portion of his divine soul to be like wild grass, unburnable. Due to the effect of the soul-burning secret art, Li Fan's appearance was now shrouded in a faint layer of blood-colored light. He looked baleful and terrifying, causing one's heart to tremble. After a long time, Li Fan gradually adapted to the constantly changing divine soul under the 2 states of soul-burning and emptiness fullness. After inspecting himself, not only had the power he could call upon nearly doubled, but even his thought processes had become much more active. The amplification brought about by burning the divine soul could be said to be all-encompassing. This is only burning the outermost part of the divine soul. If I continue to use the more condensed and pure central part of the divine soul as fuel, the amplification effect will double again. Li Fan closed his eyes and sensed it for a moment. With my current recovery speed from the limitless emptiness fullness art, I can permanently maintain the initial stage of soul burning. Prolonged intermediate stage soul burning may cause some degree of damage to the divine soul. It will require some time to slowly recover afterward. The ultimate soul burning is not necessary. Li Fan, whose strength had swelled, suddenly felt an itch for a fight again. With a thought, Tian Yang flashed and appeared before him, his eyes full of fighting spirit. Through the newly connected Soul Yin Realm passage entrance, Li Fan and Tian Yang reappeared in the empty void corridor. Without any reservations, Tian Yang launched the first attack. Ever since his defeat at the hands of his senior brother last time, he had always wanted to win back. Unfortunately, Li Fan had been avoiding battle. Now that he had finally waited for another opportunity, Tian Yang also sensed that his senior brother's strength had greatly improved. Therefore, he went all out from the start. He manipulated the space around Li Fan, attempting to sever Li Fan's body with the power of shattering. However, to his surprise, the method that had been so effective in their previous encounter had lost its effect this time. Outside of Li Fan's physical body, a strange blood-colored light enveloped him. Even as space shattered, he remained unaffected, standing firm within the shattered space. Physical body, divine soul, perfectly fused. Impervious to all laws. Li Fan narrowed his eyes, feeling the surging power within himself. His figure flickered, and the next moment he appeared beside Tianyong. Countless blood threads erupted from his body, like thousands of scarlet dragons, whistling as they lashed out at Tianyong. At the same time, a silver light flashed in his eyes, instantly setting up an array around him, sealing off Tianyang's possibility of escape. Faced with Li Fan's overwhelming and ferocious offensive, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. After discovering that he could not dodge, his entire body transformed into a mass of black, colliding with the countless blood threads. Boom! Huge rumbles were heard incessantly, and with each impact, the black mass representing Tianyong trembled violently. It was consumed and dimmed. On the other hand, Li Fan's side was filled with almost endless violent blood-colored energy. There was no sign of the offensive weakening. He even had the spare energy to show his figure, staring with interest at Tianyong, who was struggling bitterly. Thousands of blood threads completely enveloped Tianyong, condensing into a circular blood cocoon outside him. This left him with no way to escape, and he could only cope in a flustered manner. With the 5 elements Grand Grotto Heaven providing a constant stream of spiritual power support, Li Fan could always fight at his strongest state. On the other hand, the sealed Tianyang's aura was getting weaker and weaker. It wouldn't be long before he was beaten to death by Li Fan. Finally, Tianyong conveyed his intention to beg for mercy. After continuing to bombard him for a while, Li Fan finally stopped, still feeling unsatisfied. "Little junior brother, how is it? Are you still not convinced?" Li Fan asked with a light smile. Tianyong said in a muffled voice. "I'm convinced. Senior brother, you are stronger." Li Fan laughed heartily. Purely overpowering someone with force was much more satisfying than winning through trickery. Thousands of blood threads retracted into his body, but the state of soul burning was not dispelled. He only slightly restrained the visions that were emitting outwards. Although he was not as enveloped in blood-colored light as before, Li Fan still looked a bit sinister. As long as they are not at the level of Mr. Bai, even ordinary Dao harmonization cultivators, even if they attack in groups of 3 or 5, or even take turns fighting, may not be able to exhaust me. This is still under the circumstances that I am not using all kinds of divine powers. After fighting Tianyong and figuring out his approximate upper limit of strength, Li Fan nodded slightly. It's time to go to the Empire. Li Fan's eyes flickered. Taking Tianyong, he easily found the entrance to the Empire's small world. Then he sped all the way, and soon arrived outside the Empire. Without concealing his powerful aura, Xiaoqing and Xiaohong had already noticed, and were now waiting with solemn expressions. Senior, looking at Li Fan, who was full of baleful energy, Xiaoqing's eyes flashed with a trace of worry, and she tentatively spoke. "I am an envoy of the Myriad Worlds Alliance. Your small world has been requisitioned," Li Fan announced in a cold voice. Even if the aura emanating from the other party faintly suggested Dao harmonization, to subdue the Empire with such a simple sentence was too much of an underestimation. "Imperial Guard," Xiaoqing secretly transmitted her voice, while suppressing her anger, she asked again. "What Myriad Worlds Alliance? We have never even heard of it." "Senior's actions," Li Fan sneered. "It seems that you still harbor wishful thinking. Very well, then let me show you the true power." Before the words finished, the phantom of the 5 elements Grand Grotto Heaven enveloped the Empire. Under the effect of soul burning, it was like 5 intertwined blood moons, incomparably eerie. 890. Rebuilding the Wheel of Control. The entire small world of the Empire was trembling under this terrifying power. The ocean below stirred up monstrous waves. The cities built on the body of the crimson 9-headed beast were also constantly shaking, seemingly on the verge of falling from the sky at any moment. What horrified Little Blue and Little Red even more was that, under this pressure, not to mention the beasts driven by the Imperial Guards, even they too felt a deep-seated fear and couldn't muster any thoughts of resistance. The difference in strength is too great. I'm afraid even releasing that fusion beast wouldn't be a match for this person. If we resist forcefully, the Empire could be easily destroyed by the other party's single thought. Little Blue and Little Red exchanged glances, their eyes filled with helplessness and unwillingness. "We can only play along for now and think of a way later," they thought to themselves. "Senior, we are willing to surrender," Little Blue said, biting her silver teeth and bowing. "HMPH. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking," Li Fan said, retracting the illusory image of his cave heaven. He scanned Blue and Red back and forth. "You'd better abandon those little thoughts of yours. The Myriad Worlds Union has been observing you for a long time. I know all about your so-called trump cards. Even if Emperor One himself were here, I wouldn't be afraid. Let alone his clumsy imitation. Li Fan's words were outrageously arrogant, but they landed in the ears of Blue and Red, who didn't know Li Fan's true strength, shocking them so much that they abruptly raised their heads. Li Fan's incomparably deep eyes made their hearts turn ice cold. The myriad forms fusion beast was an absolute secret of the Empire. Only the emperors of each generation and the two of them knew about it. Yet this myriad worlds union expert, whom they had never heard of, actually knew about it as well. Didn't that mean they had no secrets at all in the other party's eyes? What was even more crucial was that they had no idea when the secret was leaked. A sense of despair and fear surged into their hearts. Even long ago, when they were still in the beast-controlling sect, they had never felt so powerless in the face of a longevity realm expert. Let's go, take me to the Empire's treasury. Seeing that he had done enough probing, Li Fan indifferently ordered. They were like fish on a chopping board, and now, Little Blue and Little Red no longer had any thoughts of resistance. They could only obey Li Fan's orders. Soon, Li Fan arrived once again at the Empire's treasury, which contained countless treasures and information. It was no different from what he had seen in his previous life. After taking a simple tour and examining the condition of the myriad forms fusion beast, Li Fan revealed his true intentions. Hand over Shu Kei's insights from his research on the myriad beast's wheel as well. Li Fan turned around, stared at Little Blue and Little Red, and said in a deep voice. As soon as these words came out, the two birds completely lost their composure. Just who are you? Little Blue's beautiful eyes were filled with shock, and her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. To know the name of their master Shu Kei, and even know about his research on the myriad beast's wheel. In addition to the words, myriad worlds union, a possibility couldn't help but emerge in Little Blue's mind. Beast-controlling sect. Seeing the other party's shocked expression, Li Fan revealed a sinister smile. What, could it be that you want to resist? Very well, I'll grant your wish. Tisk tisk tisk, Shu Kei, that kid, if he knew about your deaths, he would definitely be very sad, Li Fan said with a strange laugh. Little Blue and Little Red quickly said, Senior, you've misunderstood. Wait, Senior, what do you mean? The two of them stared blankly at Li Fan. You guessed right, that kid Shu Kei is still alive, Li Fan snorted coldly. This news was too shocking, and Little Blue and Little Red almost lost control of themselves and nearly fell to the ground. Alright, stop dawdling. Death, or submission. Seeing Li Fan's somewhat impatient expression, Little Blue and Little Red's hearts tightened. We are willing to submit, Little Blue said, bowing her head. After hesitating for a moment, she handed over a jade pendant carved with a blue Luan bird. This jade pendant belonged to Shu Kei back then, and she had been carrying it with her all these years. Handing it over now, her eyes were filled with reluctance. At the same time, Shu Kei's appearance vaguely emerged before her eyes. Just as she was in a trance, Li Fan had already read through the contents of the jade pendant. Beast-controlling wheel, as expected of the beast-controlling sect's supreme treasure, so profound and wondrous. Back then, after the beast-controlling sect migrated to the small world to seek refuge, they transferred elite disciples to study the beast-controlling wheel. They tried to find a way to control demonic beasts without cultivating the beast-controlling true art. Li Fan didn't know if they ultimately succeeded. But Shu Kei, who later escaped, researched the Heart Union art himself to control the beasts in the Empire's small world. Li Fan already knew about the Heart Union art. What he was truly interested in was the mysteries of the beast-controlling wheel. And Shu Kei was indeed the heaven-defying talent who was favored by Mr. Bai and created the imperial lineage. The level of detail in the jade pendant's records of the beast-controlling wheel was beyond Li Fan's expectations. With such detailed information, when the Medicine King True Cauldron returns, Fang Ziji might be able to forge a weakened version of the beast-controlling wheel. Although it would still be a while before the Medicine King sect returned. Li Fan had already arranged work tasks for them in advance. Looking at Little Blue's distraught appearance, Li Fan smiled and threw the jade pendant back to her. I know what plans you have to escape the Xuanwang world. But I can tell you very clearly that it's a dead end. Outside the endless void, there are countless dangers, even more than in the Xuanwang world. Li Fan sighed slightly, and then his expression turned stern. Joining our myriad worlds union to counterattack the immortal cultivation world and reclaim the Xuanwang world is the only way to survive. Hearing Li Fan's words, Little Blue became even more convinced of her judgment. This so-called myriad worlds union was indeed formed by the sects that fled to various small worlds in ancient times. This place of yours is weak, but it has some unique features. Li Fan commented a few times, and then distributed tasks to them. For example, the spiritual energy synthesis technology is very useful for many small worlds without spiritual energy. However, the current efficiency is still too low. Even if you use the power of the entire world to cultivate beasts, all used for slaughter, you still can't meet the needs of many small worlds. So, feeling Li Fan's gaze, Little Blue and Little Red's hearts trembled. Upgrade the spiritual energy synthesis technology at all costs. I'll give you 3 years. After 3 years, I'll come to inspect. If the results satisfy me, there will be rewards. On the other hand, useless things living is also a waste of resources, you might as well die sooner. Li Fan laughed strangely again, his words filled with chilling murderous intent. 891. Array Refining Association. Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong's hearts trembled. Because they could naturally tell that this sinister senior was definitely not speaking empty words. If they couldn't fulfill his request, he would really kill people. Spiritual Qi Synthesis. The discovery that the crystal cores within the bodies of exotic beasts could produce spiritual Qi was also purely accidental. And wanting to make a breakthrough within 3 years was really quite difficult. Just as Xiao Qing was frowning in contemplation, Li Fan suddenly said again, "Haha, this old man always means what he says." To avoid anyone harboring any Zhao Xing. In the next moment, Li Fan flashed and appeared above the empire. Tens of thousands of blood-colored threads spread out from his body, whistling and flying towards every corner of the imperial capital. It only took a moment to return. However, the end of each thread was binding Immortal of the empire. Dense and numerous, like dark clouds, obscuring the sky. This extremely terrifying scene almost caused many people below to faint on the spot. The red threads contracted, and those unlucky ghosts couldn't even let out a cry of agony, all of them being collected by Li Fan and suppressed in the 5 elements Grand Cave Heaven. Li Fan didn't simply take the lives of these mortals. Instead, he planned to send them to Shang Ren Yin to use as materials for researching the immortal mortal miasma. After severely deterring the empire, Li Fan searched and plundered again before leaving with satisfaction. As for the red rope that Mr. Bai left for Shu Ke, Li Fan didn't take it for the time being. If there was a need, it could guide a fated person to retrieve it. As for his main body, forget it. After Li Fan, this oppressive great demon, left, the people of the empire felt as if they had survived a catastrophe and cried with their heads in their hands. Xiao Qing, after counting the list of missing persons, felt a thump in her heart. Because she shockingly discovered that the group of people who were abducted by the senior of the Myriad Realms Union were all from the conservative noble faction in the empire. They usually didn't get along with the royal family, which led to various reform proposals being hindered. Now that's great, this group of people has all been packed up and taken away. From now on, they can coordinate all the power of the empire to solve the technical upgrade problem of spiritual Qi synthesis. This is definitely not a coincidence, but a warning. To actually understand the empire to this extent. Xiao Qing felt a chill in her heart, and no longer had any thoughts of resistance. She hurriedly summoned the empire's technical backbone and began to discuss this matter concerning their future destiny. After returning from the small world of the empire, Li Fan first joined forces with Tian Yang to move the entrance of the space passage to the Spirit Wood realm. Then, he personally set up a formation at the exit, to prevent the possibility of the empire's personnel escaping. As for the fact that those law-stealing people of the empire who were scattered outside might not be able to find their way home in the future, it was not within Li Fan's consideration at all. After doing all this, Li Fan took the time to go to Yin Yin Island. While handing over those mortals to Shang Ren Yin, he also inquired about his research progress. Soon, Shang Ren Yin's expression was a little strange, and he didn't have the joy of an impending breakthrough in his research. Instead, he looked a little dazed and uneasy. Even his conversation with Li Fan was one-sided and disjointed. Seeing this, Li Fan simply didn't bother him. Returning to the Spirit Wood realm, Odaozi and Shang Tianxi came to his door together. After several years of persistent and painstaking construction, the headquarters of the Myriad Realms Union had finally taken its initial shape. However, because of Li Fan's previous instructions, he had to personally make the final decision when laying the foundation. That's why they came together to ask for Li Fan's opinion. Li Fan's divine sense swept across the Spirit Wood realm. he saw a continuous building complex surrounding the central spirit wood, occupying almost 1/10 of the area of the spirit wood realm. If visitors came, the first thing that would catch their eyes would be a black jade gate tower as high as 99 jong. The plaque on the gate tower was still empty, waiting for Li Fan to inscribe it. Behind the gate tower was a long and wide road. The road surface was generally cyan, just like the one in front of the Law Enforcement Hall headquarters of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, made entirely of spirit transformation stone. Walking on it, spiritual chi was sealed off. Coupled with the no-fly formation, it could force the visiting cultivators to walk this road of audience slowly, step by step, like mortals. At the end of the long road was a circular hall. The center of the hall was still empty. Li Fan planned to place the mysterious Heaven Divine statue in it, to give everyone who saw it for the first time a little bit of mysterious shock. With the circular hall as a node, roads extended in all directions, leading to buildings with different functions, such as the Welcome Hall, the Council Hall, the Martial Arts Field, and the Myriad Realms Members Gathering Place, the Myriad Realms Passage, and so on. All these buildings were not close to each other. Different profound and yellow scenery interspersed among them, with mountains and rivers overlapping, making it a beautiful sight. Outside the building complex of the Myriad Realms Union headquarters was a miniature profound yellow realm, artificially built according to the appearance of the profound yellow realm. Shang Tianxi used the landmark landscapes of various states collected in his heaven scenery gourd to roughly recreate the profound yellow realm in the spirit wood realm. Li Fan glanced at it and saw the Great Lake of Luoyan State, the 9 mountains of 9 Mountain State, and the Cloud Sea, which he was very familiar with. In Odaozi's design, he also deliberately raised the terrain where the Union headquarters building complex was located, so that the center of the spirit wood realm was now high, and the surrounding area was low. Looking into the distance, it was as if the Myriad Realms Union was overlooking and suppressing the profound yellow realm. Good, good. As expected of a master builder, the more Li Fan looked at it, the more he liked it. It's not in vain that I put in so much effort to bring Odaozi here. I even wasted a real temptation fruit. Worth it. If he had done it, it would definitely not have been built so beautifully. Not bad, I'm very satisfied. Li Fan nodded. Shang Tianxi showed a happy expression, while Odaozi had an arrogant look on his face. Then, Senior, when can we hold the foundation laying ceremony? Shang Tianxi quickly asked. Li Fan pondered for a moment and replied, don't rush. Wait for my notice. With that, Li Fan turned into a rainbow light and flew to the sky of the spirit wood realm. Looking at the new spirit wood realm below that had already achieved an aura of auspiciousness, Li Fan calmed his mind and felt the formation materials that had been transported to various places before. It's time to start the initial formation refinement. Wanting to refine the entire small world into a magic weapon cannot be completed in a short time. Especially after being nourished by a large number of natural treasures, the scale of this spirit wood realm seems to have a tendency to transform again. But as long as the formation is engraved on the earth of the world first, no matter how it grows in the future, it is destined to not escape the shackles. Li Fan pondered, it is formation refinement, and also the protection formation of the Union. Instead of having to worry about maintenance in the future, it's better to do it in one step. After thinking about it, in order to make this place as perfect as possible, Li Fan finally made up his mind. 892. Magic cover small world. A faint light flickered in his mind, and after a moment, the end dissolution disc, radiating a shimmering white light, appeared in Li Fan's hand. It hadn't been long since Li Fan had cut off a piece last time. The end dissolution disc didn't seem to have fully recovered its vitality. Back then, 9 discs competed for supremacy, and then merged into one. In other words, this end dissolution disc can be redivided into a maximum of 9 pieces. The derivation and array breaking ability will not be affected, but the ability value is fixed at the moment of division. It's just that in the future, the speed of evolution by relying on its own derivation will be much slower. But it doesn't matter, as long as the derivation results of the mother dissolution disk are synchronized every once in a while. Li Fan's thoughts flickered, and then his finger was like an iron sword, and he slashed fiercely towards the dissolution disk. Boom! The end dissolution disk trembled slightly, and a thin piece of the child body was cut off. After putting away the increasingly weak mother body, Li Fan held the dissolution disk child body in his palm. Then, from his body, tens of thousands of blood threads stretched out again, flying to all parts of the spirit wood realm. This strange scene instantly attracted the attention of all living beings in the spirit wood realm. All the tree ant races did not dare to look directly at it, and immediately lowered their heads. Only cultivators such as Tian Yang and Shang Tianxi curiously looked at Li Fan. Countless blood threads, like paintbrushes, used the prepared array materials as pigments. On the land of the spirit wood realm, a huge array was engraved. Originally, this array covering a realm would take ordinary nascent soul array masters at least several years to barely complete the array. However, with the support of the powerful computing power of the transformation stone in Li Fan's mind, multiple points bloomed at the same time. One person undertook the simultaneous array formation equivalent to hundreds of array masters. At a speed visible to the naked eye, a large-scale array was slowly formed on the land of the spirit wood realm. Can arrays be arranged like this? This made those monks who didn't even understand arrays also dumbfounded, and looked at this scene in a daze. The array that Li Fan engraved on the spirit wood realm at this time was a brand new array created by Li Fan himself that had never appeared in the Xuanwang realm. The core refers to the top-level arrays such as myriad miles of mountains and rivers, Tianyuan transformation, and Tianshuan locking spirit. Originally, Li Fan also wanted to mix in the essence of reversing life and death. But when he just thought about it in his mind, a sense of crisis inexplicably surged in his heart, so he decisively gave up. However, in 7 days, the core basic array has been formed. Li Fan threw out the dissolution disk child body. With a burst of violent light, the child body disappeared into the air and merged into the core of the array. With the end dissolution disk as the core of the array, it can not only achieve complete monitoring and control of the spirit wood realm like the Tianshuan locking spirit. It can also use infinite methods to endlessly strengthen the protective array. Until it is as solid as a rock. Li Fan's eyes flickered. As the dissolution disk entered the array, the speed of array formation on the spirit wood realm's land instantly increased by thousands of times. If it was a child's hand drawing before, then it is now printer printing. Before the onlookers could react, the spirit wood realm's land rumbled and trembled. The light erupting from the ground reached the sky. Under the illumination of this dazzling light, all living beings in the small world were forced to close their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, all the visions disappeared without a trace. It's just that the current spirit wood realm is completely different from the past. Those with weaker cultivation bases were fine and didn't notice anything. Monks like Tian Yang in the Dao integration realm couldn't help but look around and at the sky in confusion. It was as if countless pairs of eyes were staring at him, making him feel uncomfortable. But Li Fan's loud laughter attracted Tian Yang's attention. I saw Li Fan had already put away his countless blood threads and landed in front of the 99-foot-high gatehouse of the Myriad Realms United Association. Using his hand as a pen, he inscribed the 4 characters, Myriad Realms United, under the black jade plaque in a vigorous and unrestrained manner. The strokes were vigorous and coherent. At the moment of finishing the stroke, the spirit wood realm also responded, emitting a slight and continuous tremor. Li Fan carefully examined his handwriting, and his pride was beyond words. In the sky of the spirit wood realm, the projection of the 4 characters, Myriad Realms United, appeared for some reason. Under the leadership of the female patriarch, the treants kowtowed and bowed. And all the monks also landed on the ground, looking up at the scene in the sky. With Li Fan's writing, the headquarters of the Myriad Realms United Association was officially completed. Most of the main body does not need to be improved, only minor repairs are left. It's really magnificent, but this huge headquarters of the United Association is too empty. If outsiders come and see it so deserted, they will inevitably have ideas in their hearts. Li Fan stroked his chin, and the next moment he had an idea in his mind. He snapped his fingers lightly, and after a while, figures appeared one after another in various locations of the United Association headquarters. They were hurrying and seemed very busy. Some of them were even talking to each other, no different from real people. Adding a lot of vitality to the originally very deserted Myriad Realms United Association. Well, it looks much better this way. Although it has some self-deceiving meaning, it doesn't matter. Soon it will really be lively here. A satisfied smile appeared on Li Fan's face. Senior. Just as Li Fan was lost in fantasy, Shang Tianxi came to him nervously. Li Fan thought he wanted to apply to find Lin Ling. But it was related to the new members of the Myriad Realms United Association. Senior, after my persuasion during this period, Yan Fengzhou has agreed to join our United Association. But he said he wanted to see our strength first. Fearing to anger Li Fan, Shang Tianxi said a little cautiously. Yan Fangzhou. Li Fan's expression moved. He had some impression of this person. He was a member of the Shan Zan, a genius young organization in the Xuanwang realm that Shang Tianxi had mentioned before. At a young age, he was already a god transformation cultivator. He even proposed to Shang Tianxi the cruel idea of using the Xuanwang scenery manifested in the Tianjin Gourd to burst the caves of other nascent soul cultivators. His personality was very much to Li Fan's liking. Li Fan showed a kind smile. It's okay, you can bring him here in person. At that time, I will entertain him well. Shang Tianxi was overjoyed when he heard this. Yan Fangzhou is much stronger than me. If he can join our united association, it will definitely be more helpful to the cause of the myriad realms united. After saying that, he bid farewell to Li Fan and hurried to receive Yan Fangzhou. Li Fan looked at Shang Tianxi's departing back and shook his head slightly. Then he flashed to the circular hall at the entrance of the United Association. Looking at the empty hall, Li Fan pondered for a moment, and took out the Xuantian god statue he had obtained from Mr. Bai's secret room. 893. Risking death to restore the gray spot. Xuantian sect. Li Fan looked at the faceless statue before him, his expression shifting between light and darkness. No matter what method he used to test it, the result was the same. This stone statue seemed ordinary and did not contain any extraordinary power. But it was this seemingly mundane existence that could shield divine sense. He could only see it with his eyes. Clearly, the faceless Xuantian statue was not as simple as it appeared. Moreover, in this life, after Li Fan called it the true immortal of mortal compassion, and used it as a transfer station for the sitting immortal art feedback, all the Mutual Aid Society members who swore oaths to the statue felt an inexplicable sense of restraint arise in their hearts without exception. After Vice Body Ji Shaoli's subtle inquiries, it was basically confirmed that this was not an isolated accidental phenomenon but a widespread one. It should be known that the oath of membership designed by Li Fan was just a simple piece of text. There was no extra mysterious power. And it's not just a psychological effect. Facing the oaths of cultivators, the Xuantian statue did produce a special reaction. Li Fan narrowed his eyes, his gaze falling on the statue's empty face. Placing the statue in the main hall at the entrance of the Myriad Worlds Union, to face the admiration of thousands of visitors in the future. Li Fan was almost certain that unexpected changes would definitely occur. Will the statue give birth to its own consciousness? Or will it attract the remnants of the Xuantian sect? Thinking this, Li Fan still decisively placed the Xuantian statue down. With a boom, the faceless stone statue landed steadily on the ground. Then, countless white threads appeared around it, which was the formation hub of the Spirit Wood World, Disintegration Disc Sub-Body Number 2, quickly using the formation to protect the statue. With my current strength, I can crush ordinary Dao harmonization cultivators. Plus, with this great formation spread throughout the small world. If the eternal life realm doesn't enter the small world, then I am an invincible existence in this Spirit Wood world. A gleam of light appeared in Li Fan's eyes. If they don't come, then so be it. If they really dare to seek this place, then let them try my methods. Li Fan had no doubt that there would still be former Xuantian sect members in the Xuanwang world. After all, as far as he knew, in the Zishao sect ruins in Linlang Prefecture, there was a Xuantian sect Dharma king in slumber. In other places, there must be other remnants. However, Li Fan did not feel much fear in his heart at this time. According to the various information obtained previously, apart from the Xuantian king in the half-immortal realm, the other 12 Dharma kings of the Xuantian sect are only of the old method eternal life battle strength. Quote. Li Fan snorted coldly in his heart. The next moment, his figure gradually blurred and appeared in the space directly below the spirit tree. This was the most core location of the entire Spirit Wood world, even more important than the Spirit Wood itself. A separate space that could be cut off from the Spirit Wood world at any time to escape. Outside the space, the Spirit Wood Great Formation enveloped it layer by layer. The sub-body of the terminal disintegration disc was placed here. This was also where Li Fan prepared to seclude himself and cultivate. Old method eternal life, if I am well prepared, I may not be unable to fight. Thinking this, Li Fan took out a ball of 7-colored rainbow light from his own cave abode. As soon as the light ball appeared, the spirit wood above seemed to sense some fatal crisis. Its branches and leaves moved without wind, and its towering body trembled constantly. This immediately attracted the attention of the creatures in the Spirit Wood world. Li Fan did not expect that the spirit wood's instinctive sense of life and death crisis would be so strong. Frowning slightly, he released layers of 7-colored divine light around himself again, forming another layer of isolation. Only then did he eliminate the spirit wood's fear. It had not been long since he returned from the netherworld, and the grey mold inside the three-eyed skull had almost eroded the storage space it was in. The storage ring could shatter at any time. The 7-colored divine light originally used to wrap it had also become somewhat dim. It had changed from 7 colors to grey-white. Having lost contact with Li Fan, he couldn't even replenish its energy even if he wanted to. Witnessing the destructive power of the mysterious grey mold, Li Fan couldn't help but feel secretly alarmed. Theoretically speaking, this three-eyed skull can also be considered my property. Then, when I start over this time, can I choose to keep it? If I can, I should be able to figure out its details. Thinking this, Li Fan took out a frozen alien beast that he had scavenged from the Imperial Treasury. He carefully wrapped it in rainbow light and merged it with the 7-colored light ball in front of him. Seemingly sensing the aura of life, the grey mold that inhabited the inside of the three-eyed skull suddenly became a little restless. When Li Fan removed the 7-colored divine light from around the frozen alien beast, he clearly observed the lifelike wriggling of the grey mold. However, the existence of the skull seemed to be a shackle for it. The mold was about to spread outside the skull, but suddenly shrank back. Li Fan carefully observed the changes in the dark golden patterns on the surface of the skull during this process. But to his disappointment, this mysterious pattern did not move at all. Could it be that my guess is wrong? Is this three-eyed skull really dead? Li Fan cautiously manipulated the frozen alien beast to approach the skull. The grey mold became increasingly violent. It wandered uncertainly inside the skull, seemingly ready to pounce fiercely at any time. But it also seemed to be reluctant to part with something, stopping at the most critical moment each time. Li Fan looked at this scene, lost in thought. Under the manipulation of his mind, the frozen alien beast gradually regained its vitality. The aura of life suddenly became vigorous. The grey mold ultimately failed to resist the temptation, and a large portion of it suddenly disappeared. There were no traces of movement. Instead, the space was directly corroded, forming yellow spot-like cavities. In an instant, the alien beast, which had originally regained its vitality, completely dimmed down like a faded photograph. Then, it turned into ashes and slowly fell. In those pieces of grey, Li Fan keenly saw a new small piece of grey mold. Having waited for so long, he naturally did not let go of such a good opportunity. A rainbow-like torrent poured out, instantly sealing and wrapping the newly appeared grey mold layer by layer. The grey mold, having finally gained freedom, seemed extremely furious at the sight of being sealed again. It crashed towards the 7-colored divine light, seemingly wanting to corrode this 7-colored light as well. But how could Li Fan, who could see through everything, be deceived by its tricks? While not letting go of its feint to the east and attack to the west, he also released infinite light, sealing the imperceptible small spot of grey mold in the corner of the space not far away. Playing these little tricks in front of me is really laughable. Looking at the 3 7-colored light balls in front of him, Li Fan thought so. 894. The third true immortal character. Everything was within Li Fan's control. He successfully obtained 2 copies of the grey mold. The whole process was thrilling but without any real danger. Fortunately, I have treasures like the open black lens bracket 7-colored jade void glaze close black lens bracket, which acts like a container, sealing the grey mold. Otherwise, ordinary methods would definitely be difficult to control it. If this grey mold were to escape, it would probably be a world-destroying catastrophe. Holding such a terrifying object, Li Fan's face showed no fear whatsoever. He observed the different reactions of the grey mold within the 3 light clusters. The largest one, after seeing the consequences of the mold being lured out, became quiet and dormant again. It quietly lurked inside the skull, just as Li Fan had seen it before. The second light cluster, however, still seemed unwilling to be sealed. It continued to frantically launch erosion attacks on the surrounding 7-colored divine light. But with Li Fan's continuous supply of grotto heaven power, it was all in vain. The grey mold in the third light cluster was the smallest in quantity. And it seemed that because it had only just been split off, it was the calmest. The color of its exterior was also not as deep gray as its 2 predecessors. Li Fan was therefore able to see the true appearance of the grey mold. It was composed of many vertical and horizontal lines, arranged with a certain pattern, like Some kind of text. Li Fan couldn't help but narrow his eyes. In his mind, the enormous character on the Immortal Ruins ground instantly appeared. What was hidden in this grey mold seemed to have many similarities with it. Although the scale of the two differed greatly, Li Fan, viewing and comparing them from the perspective of calligraphy, still discovered that some of the strokes were almost completely overlapping. Because he had not seen the full appearance of this character, Li Fan could not determine which character had formed this terrifying world-destroying grey mold. But Li Fan could be sure that this character, like open black lens bracket hunger close black lens bracket and open black lens bracket chaos close black lens bracket, was one of the sources of turmoil in the various realms. There are also differences between the three. I have not seen the real chaos character, only the copy imitated by the mysterious person. The complete hunger character led to the formation of the Immortal Ruins. The endless void, I don't know how many cultivation worlds will be affected. And this new character does not have a complete entity. It transforms into countless grey molds, eroding the worlds. In Li Fan's mind, one character after another flashed quickly. He wanted to find something that corresponded to the disaster brought about by the grey mold. But none of them matched. That's right, what I see is only the surface. These are just the external influences created by the true Immortal's characters. Just like I saw before, the profound yellow world was attracted by the Immortal Ruins. Attraction is just an external manifestation. The real core can only be understood by seeing the true Immortal's character with your own eyes. It is a open black lens bracket hunger close black lens bracket character. What is the essence of the grey mold? Li Fan quietly looked at the three light clusters in front of him, and fell into a long period of contemplation. He didn't know how long it had been before he woke up from his contemplation. Obviously, relying on guessing alone, with Li Fan's comprehension, he would not be able to penetrate its mysteries. Perhaps cultivating more grey mold and observing their proliferation process will lead to some discoveries. However, after pondering for a moment, Li Fan temporarily suppressed this idea. Even if the seven-colored divine light has a natural sealing effect on this grey mold. But it does not mean that the level of the seven-colored jade void glaze is higher than the grey mold. After all Li Fan can do is seal the grey mold. As time passes, the grey mold will not disappear or weaken on its own. But the seven-colored divine light will be constantly eroded. To be honest, it is just using the power of the origin of a world's heavenly Tao to delay the outbreak of the grey mold. It's the same reason why the profound yellow world can still maintain itself under the attraction of the Immortal Ruins for nearly 10,000 years. Even if I have the five elements Great Grotto Heaven, there is almost no risk of the seven-colored divine light being completely consumed. But to be on the safe side, 3 sealed light clusters are enough. After all, my purpose has been achieved. He recollected these light clusters into the deepest part of his own grotto heaven, and suppressed them heavily. With this thing in hand, even a longevity expert will fall into my calculations. As for the consequences of using the grey mold, at worst, the profound yellow world will be destroyed, and I will just restart it. However, Li Fan would not easily use this last trump card. Now his strength has greatly improved, and his soul weakness has been filled. Facing a longevity heavenly lord, he can also exchange a few moves. In addition, with the protection of the seven-colored divine light, he should not encounter the situation where he could not even use revert to truth before. Without being instantly killed, and being able to revert to truth in time. Under these two premises, it is also good to accumulate more experience in fighting against the longevity realm. Li Fan had already begun to plan the most suitable candidate in his heart. Let's start with the ancient method of longevity first. Unfortunately, the ancient methods of longevity that can survive to this day can be said to be ultimate old monsters. For a time, Li Fan couldn't even find a soft persimmon to pinch. Just as Li Fan was restless in the spirit wood realm. Outside, the Dharma transmission Heavenly Lord Dharma idol, jointly cast by the 33 Immortal Chosen, made another move. This time, the location of the Heavenly Lord Dharma idol's appearance was actually within the territory of the Five Elders Association. Yongliang Prefecture, adjacent to Nine Mountains Prefecture. Unlike its crushing and suppressing performance in Nine Mountains Prefecture, this time, after the Heavenly Lord Dharma idol floated in the sky and opened its eyes, the endless beings of Yongliang Prefecture did feel that a crisis of impending doom was coming. But at this critical moment, the phantom of a scholar stood in front of the Heavenly Lord Dharma idol. He slightly raised his head, his lips slightly open, as if saying something. And slowly, the cultivators of Yongliang Prefecture actually discovered that the Dharma transmission Heavenly Lord Dharma idol in the sky was slowly closing its eyes again. Boom! In a slight tremor, the phantom of the Heavenly Lord Dharma idol disappeared into nothing. A world-destroying catastrophe was also resolved. The figure of the scholar also slowly disappeared, and countless cultivators bowed to the Heavenly Lord to express their gratitude. It seems that within the area covered by the Longevity Heavenly Lord's reverse logic, it is still a bit difficult to compete with Longevity Realm cultivators. It's no wonder that over the years, the Myriad Immortal Alliance has not been able to gain any substantial benefits from the Five Elders Association. The power of the Heavenly Lord is too strong. It is less like fighting with cultivators, and more like fighting with 5 longevity experts. There is no chance of winning at all. When Li Fan received this video from the Five Elders Association, he thought so. However, he then frowned slightly. The Myriad Immortal Alliance always acts after careful consideration, and is nothing meaningless. They could not possibly not know that within the territory of the Five Elders Association, the Dharma transmission Heavenly Lord Dharma idol would not get any good. But they still did so. Could it be that they are experimenting with something? Li Fan couldn't help but become interested. 895. One thought to lock the genius. In the following period, the appearance of the celestial venerable of Dharma transmission's Dharma body became quite frequent. Within a month, it appeared a total of 5 times. There was even one instance where the appearances were only 2 days apart. Originally, Li Fan thought that using such a powerful move would at least require the 33 immortal chosen to pay a considerable price. But judging from this frequency, it didn't seem to be as he had imagined. Each time, the Dharma transmission Dharma body appeared in different state territories of the Five Old Ones Assembly, and after forcing several celestial venerables of the Five Old Ones Assembly to take action, it quietly disappeared. Moreover, what was even more terrifying was that each fleeting appearance of the Dharma body seemed to become more and more vivid. From the very beginning, the Dharma body only opened its eyes. Later, it slowly tried to extend its palm. The Dharma body was progressing at a speed almost visible to the naked eye. It was hard to imagine whether it would become like the real celestial venerable of Dharma transmission if it tried enough times. It doesn't need to reach the level of Dharma transmission, even if it only has 1/10 of Dharma transmission's power, it would be enough to give the Five Old Ones Assembly a hard time. No wonder the Five Old Ones Assembly is so anxious. They have sent several inquiries, wanting me to help investigate the details of the 33 immortal chosen. Li Fan sneered, "Unfortunately, I really can't do anything this time." Ignoring the Five Old Ones Assembly, Li Fan focused his attention on the new guests who had arrived in the Spirit Wood realm. At this moment, Shang Tianxi was leading them on a tour of the Spirit Wood realm. The visitor was even younger than Shang Tianxi, but on his somewhat green face, a hint of evil occasionally flashed. "I say, Tianxi, the scenery of this small world is not bad. But to call it the 10,000 Realms United Assembly, isn't that a bit of a misnomer?" The visitor was none other than Yan Fangzhou, whom Shang Tianxi had brought here with great difficulty. Yan Fangzhou said with some disdain, "The so-called 10,000 Realms United, is this all there is? It really made me excited for nothing. I thought I could finally do something big. I'm afraid that let alone overthrowing the Myriad Immortals Alliance, you can't even handle the martial arts and Dharma Protector Hall of this stone proximity state, right?" Shang Tianxi's face turned red, and he was about to retort. But suddenly, a cold voice suddenly rang out, young in age, big in tone. "Let them try." This voice was like the wrath of heaven and earth, constantly echoing in this small world. Yan Fangzhou's expression changed slightly, wanting to find the owner of the voice. But he found that he had been isolated without knowing when, and Shang Tianxi beside him was gone. The entire world seemed to be expanding infinitely, and he was like an ant in the world, only feeling the sky high and the earth wide, endless and boundless. Moreover, because of what he had just said, he seemed to have angered the world here. Amidst the changing wind and clouds, unimaginable killing intent enveloped him. Playing tricks. Yan Fangzhou was, after all, a generation of heavenly pride. How could he be so easily frightened? "Break for me." A black flame phantom suddenly appeared behind him. The moment the black fire appeared, the originally turbulent sky instantly froze. An aura of annihilation flowed from this black flame. The killing intent of heaven and earth was completely frozen, and then fell into annihilation. Bang! The surrounding scenery shattered like broken glass, layer by layer. A bit of complacency couldn't help but appear on Yan Fangzhou's face. But soon, his complacency disappeared. Because what appeared in front of him next was still the vast world full of infinite killing intent. It was as if what he had broken was just an illusion. No matter how many layers you have, break them all for me. Yan Fangzhou snorted coldly, and the black flame shot straight into the sky like a reverse meteor. Wherever it passed, the space was frozen as if it was frozen, and fell into a state of stillness. Then it was brutally crushed by the black trajectory. The surrounding scenery changed again, and the original scene appeared again. The black line continued unabated, rampaging. In the blink of an eye, he didn't know how many layers of heaven and earth he had shattered. But, no matter how many layers he shattered, the scene that appeared and surrounded him on the outside remained the same. It was like a maze with no end. Even if he ignored the walls of the maze and crashed directly through them. But he couldn't see the end at all, so he could only be trapped in this maze forever. I don't know how long it took, the original confidence on Yan Fangzhou's face slowly began to disappear. Instead, he went from disbelief to panic. When he finally determined that he could not break through the blockade of this space-time, his expression changed several times. If you have the ability, come out and have a fair fight. Do you want to convince people by relying on such tricks? Yan Fangzhou said loudly, facing the world that trapped him. Unfortunately, what disappointed him was that the other party didn't seem to hear his words at all. There was no reaction at all. A fierce look flashed in Yan Fangzhou's eyes, and he took out a golden talisman shrouded in wisps of lightning. He threw it into the air. But what he didn't expect was that this space-breaking talisman, which had always been tried and tested, was now ineffective. Not only did it not break through the space and create an escape channel. Instead, it seemed to be lost, spinning blankly in the air. Next, Yan Fangzhou tried all his life-saving methods one by one. None of them worked. This time, Yan Fangzhou was really panicked. I admit defeat. I shouldn't have boasted. The 10,000 Realms United Assembly is indeed well-deserved. Yan Fangzhou suppressed the sinister look in his eyes and shouted at the sky. Please, Senior, allow me to join the United Assembly. The sky was quiet, still without any reaction. Yan Fangzhou was stunned for a moment, thinking that the other party didn't hear him, and repeated it several times. The result was still the same. Yan Fangzhou was a little dazed now. Spirit Wood Realm. Shang Tianxi looked at Yan Fangzhou, who was suddenly standing still, and felt a little strange. He shouted a few times, but the other party didn't seem to hear him at all. This time, he finally realized that something was wrong. Around Yan Fangzhou, there seemed to be an invisible barrier surrounding him. Not only could outsiders not touch him, but he also seemed unable to sense the outside world. Senior, Shang Tianxi looked at Li Fan, who suddenly appeared, and said weakly. This young man is not bad, but he needs to be polished. Let's leave him for a year and a half first. Li Fan said lightly. In his hand, a black flame was flickering and jumping non-stop. It seemed to want to break free from Li Fan's hand. But it was being held tightly. Shang Tianxi didn't dare to refute, and had to nod in agreement. Li Fan looked at Yan Fangzhou, who was trapped by his infinite dharma, and rubbed his chin. With a thought, the next moment Yan Fangzhou was transferred to the outside of the United Assembly's Black Jade Gate Tower. Like a figure, he put him in a suitable pose. I'll let him out when he collapses. It's also convenient to train him. Li Fan thought so. 896. Mind to condense the sword intent. So-called geniuses are merely powerful individuals who have yet to mature. The current Yan Fangzhou is someone Li Fan can manipulate at will. But this black flame is somewhat interesting. Even though it's a transformation of the profound yellow world's vitality, its essence seems subtly more potent than even the scarlet flame. Enveloping his hand with a layer of iridescent jade void glaze, invisible to outsiders, Li Fan easily suppressed the black flame emitted by Yan Fangzhou, observing it carefully. This aura seems extremely similar to when the azure cloud sea was scorched dry by the scarlet flame. Both belong to the category of great destruction. Li Fan pondered intently. He had never seen the transformation of the world's vitality in the blessed land created by Mr. Bai in his previous life, making it quite rare. Soon after, Li Fan gradually gained some insight. It shouldn't belong to the profound yellow world itself, but rather from other worlds, parts of the heavens and earth that were later integrated. Numerous worlds, merging into one. Although the profound yellow world remains dominant, having absorbed so many foreign objects, the profound yellow heavenly Tao has inevitably changed as well. Li Fan slowly exerted force with his 5 fingers, causing his palm, condensed with powerful iridescent divine light, to become somewhat blurred. The black flame, despite its endless unwillingness, was crushed inch by Li Fan. If it were the soul of heaven and earth, I might really be tempted. Unfortunately, it's merely a transformation of the world's vitality. Li Fan shook his head slightly, temporarily putting Yan Fangzhou out of his mind. His thoughts drifted to the upcoming scarlet flame-burning sea. Now that I know the locations of too many souls of heaven and earth, there's no need to be fixated on the scarlet flame anymore. On one hand, the scarlet flame is too weak, and on the other hand, after the scarlet flame dies, Mo Sha will descend. Even if I can escape from Mo Sha's grasp, it would likely attract the attention of hidden powerful figures in the profound yellow world. Too conspicuous. For now, it's best to remain hidden. After contemplating for a moment, Li Fan made up his mind. It's almost time to arrange for the members of the Azure Cloud Mutual Aid Society to evacuate. After all, they are seedlings that I painstakingly cultivated, the backbone of the future Myriad Worlds United Association. I can't let them die in vain. Currently, the strongest member of the Azure Cloud Mutual Aid Society is Pei Tuo, in the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Although he didn't participate in the Immortal Alliance examination again, he was given important responsibilities due to his qualitative breakthrough in strength. He has now been promoted to the position of Martial Guard in the Azure Cloud Sea Martial Arts Hall, managing 3 martial arts cues, wielding considerable power. Yes, I need to think of a way to transfer him to the inland. But at his level, it's a bit difficult to transfer him laterally. Perhaps I can help him achieve some merit. In an instant, the faces of many 5 Old Men Society spies appeared in Li Fan's mind. Now that he had decided, his clone Ji Shaoli immediately began to make arrangements. Li Fan then remembered what Yan Fangzhou had said earlier. This small world scenery is not bad, but to call it the Myriad Worlds United Association seems a bit misleading, doesn't it? I can't even fool a young brat. It seems I really need to improve it again. While pondering, his divine sense swept over the spirit wood world, which, although possessing profound yellow wonders, still felt somewhat empty. An idea instantly came to his mind. His figure flickered, arriving at a mountain peak. Referring to the appearance in his memory, his thoughts stirred. Before long, a stone tower with an ancient aura emerged from the ground. Li Fan then took out a spire from his storage ring. Replaced and placed it. After the spire was placed on the stone tower, the newly unearthed stone tower instantly gained a trace of mysterious aura. Li Fan nodded in satisfaction. Looking around the stone tower, soon after, with a series of rumbling sounds, buildings appeared one after another. I just need the tree ants to decorate it, and it'll be about right. Arriving outside the building complex, Li Fan wrote the 3 characters, Heavenly Mystery Sect, on a blank boulder with a stroke of his pen. A 1-to-1 replica, plus with the Heavenly Mystery Sect's treasure, the Heaven and Earth Chenkin dice here, who would dare say my Heavenly Mystery Sect is fake? Li Fan smiled slightly. Next, Li Fan followed suit. According to the scenery of the Heavenly Sword Sect in his memory, he replicated it. Looking at the empty new mountain gate, Li Fan couldn't help but think of the Heavenly Wonder sword that had not yet been born and was still buried in the Heavenly Sword Sect's sword tomb. The item is a good item. However, it was left by Mr. Bai, so it might be his backup plan. I must be wary. Moreover, Heavenly Wonders all have spirituality. Even if I go to retrieve it, I may not be able to make it my own. I can do a favor. While thinking this, Li Fan casually broke off a wooden branch. He recalled his own understanding of the sword Dao in his mind. He also referred to Mr. Bai's red string that he had sensed in his previous life, as well as his understanding of sword in the Heavenly Sword Sect. Gradually, the wooden branch in Li Fan's hand underwent a mysterious change. Countless phantoms of swords appeared on it. Then, they suddenly disappeared into it. The color of the branch became deep, and the texture became hard. Slowly, the components belonging to the branch gradually disappeared. It really looked more and more like a sword. It was just a pity that after initially absorbing countless sword shadows, the number of sword Dao true meanings pouring into it decreased sharply. That was because Li Fan's insights had dried up. It could not support this mortal object's complete transformation towards a heavenly wonder. After a moment, Li Fan ran out of ideas. Looking at the strange sword branch in his hand, he shook his head slightly. It can barely be considered a wonder of humanity. With a gentle force, the sword branch turned into dust. However, he was not annoyed. After all, unlike formations, he did not spend a long time cultivating it. He had only learned the sword Tao casually. Being able to create a wonder of humanity was definitely remarkable. Even if I don't retrieve it, I might as well go to the Heavenly Sword Sect ruins. By the way, the old sites of other sects such as the Medicine King Sect and the Purple Firmament Sect can also be visited. Li Fan planned to reproduce these immortal cultivation sects that had disappeared in the river of history in the Spirit Wood world. Of course, it didn't have to be perfect, as long as it could fool people. I have the Heavenly Mystery Sect's relic. In the future, when the Medicine King True Cauldron returns, there will be the original members of the Medicine King Sect. Truth within falsehood, falsehood within truth. Who can tell the difference then? Li Fan felt a little complacent in his heart and left the Spirit Wood world. He went straight to the Heavenly Sword Sect ruins. The Heavenly Sword Sect ruins on the surface are now in heavenly radiant state. But in his previous life, he learned from Shuofeng that the Heavenly Sword Sect's sword tomb and the location of that sword were not in heavenly radiant state, but rather in heavenly nether state, which was separated by a state. It happened to be divided into two by the white mist barrier, cutting it from the middle. Therefore, the sword tomb had never been discovered. He quietly and discreetly moved forward all the way. Without alarming the myriad Immortal Alliance cultivators along the way, Li Fan soon arrived at the heavenly nether state sword tomb ruins. Looking at the unremarkable scene in front of him, which looked like a mass grave for mortals, Li Fan couldn't help but sigh. Who would have thought that the former Heavenly Sword Sect would turn into this? 897. Sacrificing oneself to enter the sword tomb. On the desolate and withered land, numerous small mounds rose like tumors. Even from a distance, one could smell the stench of decay and putrefaction emanating from them. Some of these mounds had been dug open by busybodies. Inside, there was nothing but black, rotten pus, and nothing else. It was said that the 10,000 Immortals Alliance had also sent specialists to investigate. After an inconclusive investigation, they attempted to eradicate the entire area, which resembled an abscess on the earth. However, in less than half a year, these continuous small mounds reappeared. The Immortal Alliance sent people to deal with it again. This happened 3 times, but these pustules stubbornly persisted. In the end, they had no choice but to give up, considering it a phenomenon similar to a strange occurrence. However, Li Fan knew that the reason for this area's abnormality was not some strange occurrence at all. Rather, it was caused by the residual thoughts attached to countless swords, twisted and corrupted over thousands of years. It's not surprising that the 10,000 Immortals Alliance dealt with it perfunctorily. Even if an ordinary Tao harmonization expert came in person, if they weren't proficient in the way of the sword, they probably wouldn't be able to detect the abnormality here. Thinking this, Li Fan activated the inverse 5 elements life and death sword. In his vision, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. Countless black shadows floated out from those raised pustules. Like ghosts, their eyes emitted a crimson light, staring intently at Li Fan. From the surroundings, there was a constant stream of unintelligible murmurs, like screams or resentful curses. The whispers seemed to penetrate the eardrums, reaching directly into Li Fan's mind. Even closing his hearing and severing his divine sense couldn't stop it. Li Fan frowned slightly, knowing that this was a necessary step to enter the sword tomb of the Heavenly Sword Sect, so he had to maintain his original intention and persevere under the attack of this strange and ear-piercing sound. The red-eyed black shadows, seeing Li Fan unmoved, became furious. Turning into black lines, they rushed towards Li Fan. Closer, the appearance of the black shadows became clear. Some were like corpses that had recently died and were rotting, their flesh festering and maggots crawling. Some were like terrifying figures being roasted by fire, their bodies dissolving. Others were blurred flesh and blood cut into countless pieces. Their common feature was that these corpses all resembled Li Fan. The moment he saw them, a myriad of ways he could die sprang into Li Fan's mind. Not just fantasies, but extreme, realistic hallucinations, like after swallowing the intention horse. Even his body could feel the corresponding pain. A small trick. Not to mention I have the Immortal Heart mantra protecting me, preventing all laws from invading. Even if I were to be caught off guard, with the means of a nascent soul realm cultivator or higher, I can constantly regenerate my body. A good move, but it's outdated. Thinking this, Li Fan allowed the black shadows to devour him. Then the 5 elements grotto heaven rumbled slightly, and in the blink of an eye, another body reappeared. More black shadows emerged from the mounds, screaming and flying towards Li Fan. In this way, Li Fan kept recreating his body, finally getting every black shadow in the nearly 10,000 mounds to touch him. Each time he was eroded by a black shadow, Li Fan felt his body slightly sink. Not sinking into the ground, but sinking into another space. These black shadows were like water ghosts, pulling Li Fan into the world they lived in. When he had completely sunk, the scene in front of him changed, and Li Fan finally truly entered the sword tomb. It was no different from what Shuo Feng described. Thousands upon thousands of broken swords were diagonally inserted into the ground. They all bent slightly towards the center, as if bowing to their emperor. The arrival of Li Fan, an outsider, did not elicit any reaction from them. Carefully observing these seemingly decayed swords, Li Fan discovered that it wasn't that they were becoming decayed. Rather, under the baptism of the heavenly oddity sword in the center, they were becoming more and more pure. No longer needing the constraints of form, they were becoming conceptual and energy-like, just like the sword. The black shadows above are the killing intent, obsessions, and desires of those slaughtered by the swords, attached to these thousands of swords. In this pure world of swords, they gradually have no place to stand and are slowly eliminated. Li Fan operated the inverse 5 elements life and death sword, disguising himself as a sword. He stood still, observing his surroundings. If there were no outside interference, under the subtle influence of the sword, these thousands of swords in the sword tomb might really be able to shed their forms and become conceptual existences. Li Fan's eyes revealed a strange color. What is this? One person attains the Tao, and even his pets ascend to heaven. As expected of an existence enlightened by Mr. Bai. Thinking this, Li Fan finally took the first step forward. A moment later, his expression changed slightly. Because at that moment, thousands of swords around him simultaneously sent out sword intent. They seemed dissatisfied with his cutting in line. In Li Fan's perception, these outwardly decayed swords finally revealed their radiant true forms. Some had fiery red bodies, like crimson flames, some had misty sword energy, like azure jade, some had pitch-black bodies, but a thick bloody aura, some were like golden light, with thunder and lightning wrapped around them, like majestic heavenly power. Although they were just the swords on the outermost edge of the sword tomb, after thousands of years of tempering by the true meaning of the sword, they were no longer within the realm of ordinary objects. Each of them could be considered a high-grade human oddity. Li Fan snorted coldly, and the inverse 5 elements life and death sword intent burst forth. Under the pressure of countless sword intents, he took another step forward. This time, he offended even more swords. Instantly, countless sword marks appeared on Li Fan's body, dripping with blood. Even his divine soul seemed to be slashed by sword energy, causing a faint pain. I can't fight back, I can only endure silently. Otherwise, I'll be regarded as an enemy by all the swords in the sword tomb, and they'll attack me together. Even the wooden sword in the center will take action. Li Fan sensed this and temporarily cancelled the soul-burning state. He fully operated the limitless emptiness and fullness art, striding forward. For a time, he truly tasted what it meant to have 10,000 swords piercing him. His body was already riddled with holes, and even with the support of the 5 elements grotto heaven's power, he could only barely maintain his human form. Although his divine soul healed quickly after being severely injured, the extreme pain was unavoidable. Shuo Feng had it easy. He didn't have to worry about the attack of these 10,000 swords at all. Just relying on the golden armor his mother gave him, he walked to the very center of the sword tomb as if strolling in a garden. Li Fan recalled Shuo Feng's description in his pain and couldn't help but sigh. Although he couldn't help but complain, in reality, the combined force of the 10,000 swords in the sword tomb didn't stop Li Fan in the slightest. In just half a day, Li Fan steadily walked to the very center of the sword tomb. 898. Old things in the east window revealed. An ordinary wooden sword stood upright, stuck in the ground. It was no different from the one Li Fan had seen in the meteor Immortal realm's heavenly sword sect. As if the passage of time had no effect on it. 1,000 years the same as yesterday. Looking at the scene before him, Li Fan even had the illusion that the wooden sword he had seen in the meteor Immortal realm was this very one. I wonder what method Shuo Feng used to take this wooden sword away. Li Fan could now see some clues. Here, tens of thousands of broken swords, with open black lens bracket sword close black lens bracket as their core, faintly formed a formation. If one wanted to forcibly take this gift of heaven away, they would not only have to face the resistance of open black lens bracket sword close black lens bracket. but also be attacked by all the swords in this place. Even with Li Fan's current cultivation, he could barely do it. But it would definitely cause a great commotion and attract the attention of the myriad Immortal Alliance. It's the right way to make it willingly follow me. Unfortunately, Li Fan tried to convey his will, but the wooden sword completely ignored him. Fortunately, Li Fan didn't really want to take it away. Taking out a Dao comprehension pill and swallowing it, Li Fan sat on the ground, sensing the sword intent on the wooden sword. At this time, Li Fan's position was the closest to the wooden sword among all the broken swords in the sword tomb. Ignoring the faint hostility from these swords, Li Fan just focused on comprehending. With the help of the Dao comprehension pill, coupled with Li Fan's already decent comprehension ability, and the fact that he had previously comprehended it for a period of time in the Meteor Immortal realm. In an instant, many images kept appearing in his mind. It seems that this wooden sword itself has undergone some kind of change after thousands of years. Compared to what I saw in the Meteor Immortal realm, it's even more. Li Fan thought for a long time, but couldn't find a suitable word to describe it. To say it's more perfect, the open black lens bracket sword close black lens bracket that Mr. Bai casually condensed was the embodiment of the Xuanwang realm's sword Dao, perfect and flawless. To say it's stronger, the two are merely different in nature. The wooden sword from 1,000 years ago may not be weaker than the current one. It should be said that with the change of the Xuanwang realm's heavenly Dao, this gift of heaven is also changing accordingly. Overall, the current one is more capable of exerting greater combat power in the current Xuanwang realm. Li Fan seemed to have realized something. Just as Li Fan was in the sword tomb, trying to comprehend the true meaning of the Xuanwang sword Dao and trying to replicate Mr. Bai's feat of creating a gift of heaven with his bare hands. Among the Kanyan Sea, on the Seazon Island, a cultivator named Yan Longjiang quietly approached the avatar Ji Shaoli. Looking at the other party's hesitant look, Ji Shaoli smiled. Fellow Taoist Yan, please speak frankly. You are also a veteran of our Kanyan Sea Mutual Aid. The current scale of our Mutual Aid Association cannot be separated from your efforts in promotion. Yan Longjiang then lowered his voice nervously and said, when the 6 of us joined the Mutual Aid Association in the first batch, fellow Taoist Ji promised to provide each of us with a cave heaven needed to advance to the nascent soul stage. I wonder if it still counts. Yan Longjiang swallowed and said with a look of trepidation. It's no wonder he was in such a state. After all, the current mutual aid is different from the past. In just a few years, it has developed into a complex network. Moreover, many members have already gone to the Immortal Alliance's mainland to take up positions, with unlimited prospects. And Ji Shaoli himself is even more mysterious, even Dao integration cultivators are respectful in front of him. If he didn't agree, Yan Longjiang would definitely not dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. Yan Longjiang did not expect that Ji Shaoli was easier to talk to than he had imagined. Haha, what are you saying, fellow Taoist Yan? I, Ji, have always kept my word. It's just a mere cave heaven, how can I be reluctant to reward those who have contributed to the association? Ji Shaoli patted Yan Longjiang on the shoulder to reassure him. Then he asked, what technique do you cultivate, fellow Taoist Yan? What type of cave heaven do you want? In fact, Ji Shaoli had already figured out the other party's situation, but he still asked. Yan Longjiang was overjoyed when he heard this, and quickly replied, I cultivate the open double angle bracket 7 Fiends Wind Control True Art Close double angle bracket. As for the cave heaven, I don't dare to ask for too much, just something a little more spacious will do. Yan Longjiang said in a low voice. Ji Shaoli nodded slightly, and after a while, a suitable target appeared in his mind. Without saying much, Ji Shaoli then took Yan Longjiang to the destination quietly. In Juchao continent, Ji Shaoli protected him. In just 7 days, Yan Longjiang successfully devoured this open black lens bracket Gale Cave Heaven close black lens bracket. Suppressing the aura on his body that had not yet subsided, Yan Longjiang respectfully bowed to Ji Shaoli. Thank you, fellow Taoist, for your accomplishment. I have no way to repay this kindness, and I will definitely serve the Mutual Aid Association to the death in the future. Ji Shaoli waved his hand. There are many people here, let's go back and talk about it later. Not long after the two left, a middle-aged cultivator wearing a blue robe slowly wandered near the Gale Cave Heaven. After looking around and confirming that there was no one around, he formed hand seals, wanting to enter the Cave Heaven. Who knew that there would be no reaction at all? The middle-aged cultivator's expression changed drastically, and he repeated the hand seals again, not believing in evil. The result was still the same. This time he completely panicked. He took out a spiritual talisman and after sending a message. Not long after, a burly black-clothed cultivator came to this place. The black-clothed cultivator concealed his appearance, and the aura exuding from his body was already at the transformation god realm. After he checked, his expression was extremely ugly. This Gale Cave Heaven has been stolen. The blue-clothed middle-aged cultivator's face was full of disbelief. What? The cave heaven is gone. He stared blankly ahead. Who is so bold? The killing intent in the black-clothed cultivator's eyes could not be suppressed at all. Our Shang family has always taken other people's things. Now it's good, we've been bullied. Investigate. Investigate to the end. I want to see who is so arrogant. The Shang family's reaction was very quick. In less than half a cup of tea, 5 or 6 cultivators came to the scene of the crime. After a burst of casting spells, they saw 2 blurred figures. Unfortunately, the other party is not a kind person either. They used secret techniques to conceal it, and can only be restored to this. Among the people investigating, the white-haired man at the head said with some regret. Can you track the trajectory? The time hasn't passed for too long, it should be possible. The white-haired man nodded. Saying that, he took out a golden square compass and threw it into the air. Then 2 faint silver trajectories appeared in front of everyone. Looking at this direction, it leads to Juchao Heavenly City. HMPH, is it actually an internal member of the Myriad Immortal Alliance? The Shang family's black-clothed cultivator sneered while gnashing his teeth. I'm afraid they are cultivators from other continents, not local cultivators from our Juchao. I just don't know how the information about this Gale Cave Heaven was leaked. The white-haired man's tone was a little puzzled. Speaking of which, is there something you've heard about, Brother Shang? Not long ago, the immortal miasma inexplicably broke out. After it subsided, the Immortal Alliance sent people to investigate the underground of Keeling Continent. They discovered traces of the heaven and earth spirits' activities there. But it suddenly disappeared. The white-haired man transmitted his voice. What do you mean? The black-clothed cultivator narrowed his eyes. The disappeared heaven and earth spirit was originally repairing the underground cave of Keeling Continent. It was precisely because of its disappearance that the immortal miasma broke out. 899. The wooden sword established a new way. The soul of heaven and earth, having received its heavenly duty, will never suddenly disappear unless killed, as long as its mission is incomplete, the white-haired man whispered. The black-clad cultivator was taken aback, not immediately understanding why the other party brought this up. But after a moment, he paused slightly, and said with some uncertainty, Brother Zhan means, these 2 incidents were done by the same organization. Impossible, right? The black-clad cultivator frowned. To be able to kill the soul of heaven and earth without attracting the attention of the Immortal Alliance, such strength. The white-haired man surnamed Zhan smiled faintly. Brother Shang, don't you find it strange? Your Shang family only recently discovered this Raging Wind Grotto. How could this group of foreign cultivators know about it? To be honest, a mere nascent soul grotto isn't much. The key is the ability demonstrated behind it, which makes people feel uneasy. It is said that the Immortal Alliance attaches great importance to this matter, and even a Dharma transmitter has come forward, the white-haired man said with a solemn expression. The black-clad cultivator was shocked and horrified. Why would it go this far? He, who had been somewhat arrogant before, became a little nervous after hearing the 3 words Dharma transmitter. The depth to which this matter had become entangled was beyond his imagination. Brother Shang also knows that my father holds a position in the Palm Heaven Department. Therefore, the white-haired man stopped there. The black-clad cultivator nodded, constantly calculating in his mind. The Zhan surnamed cultivator looked at his friend, and there were some words he hadn't said. The so-called Palm Heaven Department is a mysterious organization within the Immortal Alliance that specializes in observing and monitoring the traces of the soul of heaven and earth and the principles of heaven and earth. It is not on the official organization list, and only a very small number of cultivators know of its existence. The soul of heaven and earth is related to Tao integration battle power. Each one is extremely important, so it is reasonable for the Immortal Alliance to want to supervise them. They strive to incorporate every soul of heaven and earth into the Palm Heaven Department's monitoring as much as possible, and the efficiency has been increasing in recent years. Although it is not yet 100%, nearly 1/3 of the souls of heaven and earth in the world are registered with the Palm Heaven Department. This can be regarded as the Immortal Alliance's most valuable asset. However, this is just a task that the Palm Heaven Department is incidentally. The true duty of the Palm Heaven Department is to constantly monitor the traces of the principles of heaven and earth. Even though the principles of heaven and earth hardly change for thousands of years. But the Palm Heaven Department must keep a close eye on them at all times, without relaxing in the slightest. The principles of heaven and earth are like a giant, crisscrossing net, weaving together the heavenly Tao of the Xuanwang realm. There are eternal celestial sovereigns who defy the principles of heaven and earth, thereby becoming a part of this giant net. The process of defying the principles will inevitably cause the threads of this giant net to move, thus emitting bursts of fluctuations. The higher the degree of reversal, the stronger the fluctuations. Through this method, it can be observed whether a cultivator is reversing the principles of heaven and earth and proving the Tao of longevity. If such traces are discovered, the identity of the principle reversing cultivator must be immediately investigated. If they are neutral cultivators, that's fine. If the other party belongs to the Five Old Ones Association, then they must try every possible means and at all costs to prevent the other party from successfully reversing the principles. Various things about the Palm Heaven Department flashed through Zanfei's mind. He didn't actually have any good feelings about the organization he was about to join, even though his father had emphasized the importance of the Palm Heaven Department to him countless times. After all, once you enter the Palm Heaven Department, you will have to sit in front of that instrument for most of your life. You might not even get a day off in 100 years. Such a life. Unfortunately, the appointment to the Palm Heaven Department is not something he can control. Zanfei looked at his friend beside him, and a trace of envy flashed in his heart. Being a local tyrant is not bad either. The black-clad cultivator named Shang Zhengqiang did not know what his friend was thinking. He thought and hesitated for a long time before finally making a decision. First, find out the identity of the cultivator who stole the Raging Wind Grotto, but don't act rashly. Let's see what the Palm Heaven Department is first. Kang Yanxi, Ji Shaoli, who had already returned to Haishuan Island, didn't know that he was being targeted. However, after he finished dealing with the various affairs of the Mutual Aid Society, he received an anonymous message. Does fellow Taoist Ji have any grudges with the Shang family of Juchao continent? I see someone over there secretly inquiring about your news. Ji Shaoli looked strange. Juchao continent. He frowned. His only connection with Juchao continent was probably the Raging Wind Grotto he had swallowed not long ago. He instantly understood the reason why he might have offended them. After some searching, Ji Shaoli felt a little relieved. This Shang family is just a local force in Juchao continent, with only one Dao integration cultivator sitting in charge. Even if they come to his door, Ji Shaoli would not be afraid. However, I still need to make some preparations. Ji Shaoli's eyes flickered. Heaven Sword Sect, Sword Tomb. Li Fan, who was concentrating on comprehension, suddenly woke up. It wasn't because of the crisis that his clone might face, but because he inexplicably, completely unable to comprehend anything from that sword. Li Fan looked around. He found that it wasn't just him. The thousands of abandoned swords in the sword tomb also seemed to have lost their sense of that sword. The slightly bent sword bodies returned to straightness, completely at a loss. Li Fan stared intently at the wooden sword in front of him. Is it its own change? Loss of spirituality? No, this is temporary. Soon, Li Fan noticed the clues. He didn't act rashly, just carefully observed the wooden sword and waited patiently. Sure enough, after only a quarter of an hour, the wooden sword regained its demeanor as a wonder of heaven. Full of the mysteries of the sword, making thousands of swords bow their heads. The problem is, what happened during that quarter of an hour? Li Fan immediately became interested. While comprehending the sword Dao, he waited for the next failure event to occur. After several days of continuous observation, Li Fan also discovered the pattern. Every once in a while, the sword would fixedly lose its spirituality for a quarter of an hour. During this period, the thousands of abandoned swords in the sword tomb also simultaneously lost their sense of that sword. Only one was an exception. Thanks to the existence of the transformation stone in his mind, Li Fan was able to completely record the reactions of each sword before and after, and then compare them one by one. Thereby discovering this special feature. Locking onto the target, Li Fan jumped to its side the next time the failure event occurred. This was an inconspicuous black sword covered in dust. Simple and unadorned, it had neither a sharp blade nor intricate patterns. It was like a forging apprentice's first practice, so ordinary, even ugly. But it was this sword that won the favor of the wooden sword, the wonder of heaven. If the scene of 10,000 swords worshipping in this sword tomb was like the wooden sword giving a unified lecture, then during the failure period, it was equivalent to the wooden sword giving this black sword a private lesson. 900. The person who spread the law appeared. To have Mu Jontian Zichi personally dedicate fixed time for one-on-one instruction. This unremarkable black sword must possess extraordinary qualities. Li Fan's divine sense slowly scanned over it. No matter how he looked at it, this was just an ordinary piece of mortal iron. It seemed like he could easily break it with his bare hands. But just as the wooden sword lost its spirituality, and the other remnant swords looked around blankly, subtle changes were occurring within the black sword itself. It's like being slowly tempered by fire, removing impurities and retaining the essence. It looks simple and unadorned, but in reality, it's like the wooden sword, returning to the origin. The great Tao is simple. Gradually, Li Fan saw the mystery within. Is Mu Jontian Zichi planning to create another body for himself? This thought suddenly emerged in Li Fan's mind. Other remnant swords may need a long time to transform into complete conceptual existences. But this black sword, due to Mu Jontian Juki's special attention, is not far from completing its transformation. Perhaps, this might be one of the reasons why the wooden sword was willing to leave with Shuafang, Li Fan pondered. Looking at this unformed black sword, Li Fan temporarily dismissed the idea of taking it away. There should be another 10 years or so. This can also be considered a fruit borne by Mu Jontian Zichi. If I can take it away, the heavenly sword sect within the spirit wood realm will be firmly established. Although it is not yet clear why Mu Jontian Zichi would do this, it does not prevent Li Fan from making the best use of it. Returning to his original spot, he stayed in this sword mound for a few more days. After realizing that he could no longer gain any new insights from the wooden sword, Li Fan reluctantly left. Before leaving, Li Fan did not forget to use a secret method to hide this sword mound. He also left a mark. As soon as anyone else intruded, he would immediately sense it. The Heavenly Sword sect's matter is settled. Next is the Medicine King sect. The location of the Medicine King sect's ruins is not a secret. Located in a remote mountain within the six-string state. Over the years, it had already been thoroughly scavenged by cultivators. Only some unwanted scrap metal remained, scattered all over the ground. When Li Fan arrived here, he couldn't find any other living people within 100 miles. A faint, foul odor permeated the air, making people feel disgusted. The Medicine King sect's actions are indeed to my liking. Even when the entire sect was preparing to escape, they still left behind such disgusting miasma, to prevent their old sect grounds from being occupied by others, Li Fan thought to himself. This special stench was left behind by the Medicine King sect back then. It was almost integrated with the land here, lingering for thousands of years without dissipating. If it is not dispelled, no one would want to live in such a foul-smelling place. Although the Medicine King sect's trick was a bit disgusting, it was indeed effective. Li Fan looked at the relatively well-preserved ruins and, according to what Zhao Shuyuan said, came to the abandoned workshop. Enduring the stench, he activated his spiritual power and dug out several small Medicine King cauldrons buried deep underground. There are actually 36 cauldrons. Li Fan's expression was strange. Although he had previously entrusted Zhao Shuyuan to help him dig up small Medicine King cauldrons, the other party had confidently stated that there were only 20-odd. Fellow Taoist Zhao, fellow Taoist Zhao. Li Fan shook his head slightly, noting this down. As usual, he searched carefully again. Apart from these old cauldrons, the Medicine King sect indeed had nothing else of value. Li Fan then went straight to the Purple Firmament sect. At the same time, Xizan Island, Ji Shaoli suddenly felt a sense of unease. Strange, I have clearly made ample preparations. Logically speaking, even if a Dao integration cultivator personally arrives, I should be able to retreat calmly. Where does this sense of crisis come from? Ji Shaoli, who had always trusted his premonitions, suddenly stood up, his expression extremely solemn. He paced back and forth repeatedly, but the sense of crisis not only did not dissipate. Instead, it intensified. His heart pounded wildly, as if a great disaster was imminent. Ji Shaoli knew something was wrong. He checked the teleportation array on the island and found that it had indeed been sealed and could not be activated. Trying to trap me in a jar. A trace of coldness flashed in Ji Shaoli's eyes. He tried to activate the teleportation formation, but it was also ineffective. It was as if something had sealed off the entire space around Saran Island. Although Ji Shaoli was shocked, he remained calm. Holding a withered branch in his hand, he sensed that the power of the earth veins beneath his feet was not restricted. He breathed a slight sigh of relief. After a period of growth, Lin Ling spent her days with the Taoist child, Luli, and her strength had also greatly improved. Not only that, but as her spirituality increased day by day, her relationship with the ancient earth vein tree became even better. She obtained this withered earth vein branch from the other party, allowing anyone who holds it to travel through the earth veins. Having a means of escape, Ji Shaoli did not leave immediately. He wanted to see who was trying to harm him. Being able to shut down the two-way teleportation array of myriad Immortals Island, and the connections he had maintained with a large amount of contribution points were of no use. All of this indicated the enemy's strength. It was definitely beyond what the Shang family, the local tyrant of a state, could do. Ji Shaoli was not afraid of exposure, as long as he could figure out the reason for his failure. Humming a little tune, he brewed 2 cups of spiritual tea. Ji Shaoli patiently waited for his guests to arrive. He had already sent away the members of the Mutual Aid Association on Saran Island with an excuse. Promising Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi 2 Earth-grade strange objects, Ji Shaoli had also told them the specific information. As for whether they could find them alive, it would depend on their own good fortune. Without making Ji Shaoli wait too long, suddenly, a young figure appeared beside Ji Shaoli. What made Ji Shaoli's pupils shrink was that this youth appeared without any fluctuations in aura. It was as if he had been right next to Ji Shaoli from the start. What shocked him even more was, he had seen this youth before. The law transmitter. Ji Shaoli blurted out. It was the very same Li Fan in the fallen immortal realm, during the scene where Ning Yuan took the longevity fruit. One of the cultivators spreading the new law that he saw when he soul-searched the first member of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. The youth was also a little surprised that Ji Shaoli called out his identity as soon as he opened his mouth. Interesting. The youth's eyes were burning as he stared at Ji Shaoli. The next moment, the doppelganger only felt his thoughts and body completely frozen. The means of escape he had prepared in advance were also ineffective. As if his soul was being extracted, a blurry figure was appearing on Ji Shaoli's body. Just then, 2 streaks of 7-colored light suddenly emerged and attacked the youth. But the youth pinched them between his 2 fingers the moment they approached. Unable to advance even half a step. This is. The youth looked at the 7-colored divine light in his hand, a strange look appearing in his eyes. After suppressing and collecting it with a wave of his hand, the youth looked at Ji Shaoli again.